Shalom, balance, righteousness, and paradise all back in the building. And again, I got some more special guests with me. We're going to continue the part two. I have the sibling A-Noot and the sibling Taah Nuun. Welcome back, siblings. What do you do, mate?
True peace. What's going on?
True peace, true peace. Back with this part two. Thank you for letting us on your platform to spread the information.
Honors, man. Honors, no doubt. You're most welcome. The part one was tremendous, so we had to do a part two. And based upon Noone Science and what we covered in part one, was pretty much, I would say, a ski taste. It was a foundational viewpoint on the propagator of Noone Science, Afro Uno. Would that be a fair statement?
I would say so.
Yeah, the word propagate is used in the nature books a couple of times.
Ah, excellent. So I did think I got the right verbiage, man. I got the right verbiage. So yeah, man. Part two, we're gonna open this up, man. We're gonna open this book up because all we did was open the first part of the book and read the preface. So we're gonna get into chapter 1, 2, and a whole lot more with this New Science. So, and obviously we went into you all personal journey in regards to your growth and development and how you came into this year New Science. So we've jumped out of the DeLorean. It's 2020. We got a global pandemic going on. What's the answer, man? What can New Science bring forth to bring some balance in this year, man?
Amazing. That's an amazing question. That's one of the best questions I've heard in a while. What can Noone Science offer as far as with this pandemic that's going on? So I guess I'll go first since I jumped in first. Greetings for those who start with part two instead of part one. My name is A-Noot, Bunu Nupu. I represent the bone marrow of the African race. And what that basically means is that the bone marrow is the Aries constellation of the zodiac. So in retrospect, Noon revealed to us that there's another aspect of nature that represents the body parts, and that those constellations that you see behind me are actual body parts of the one, well, not the one supreme being, but our particular part of the universe that we live inside. And those collection of stars are the attributes and personality in some kind of retrospect to the person that's being born under that sign. So that's why my name is A-Noot Bunu Nupu, the Bunu representing bone marrow. All right. Now, in retrospect to your question about what Noon can offer to those in the pandemic, number one, what's happening is that we're seeing a lot of mental illness and a lot of misinformation about certain biological factors when it comes to viruses, when it comes to the immune system and things of that nature. So what Noon actually helps to implore is that gathering information and proper knowledge about a particular subject is going to help with your mental health and your mental well-being. So take myself for example. In Noon, it speaks about physical health, mental health, and spiritual health. All of these are actually linked together. So mental health is what precedes spiritual health, and spiritual health is what precedes physical health. So when we look at something like a virus that has been bestowed upon the people, we have to think to ourselves, well, what kind of virus is this? How would it affect me in retrospect to the entire world and in retrospect to the environment and things of that nature. When you look at that virus, the coronavirus, we see that it's attacking people who have comorbid conditions. And comorbid meaning more than one health condition. Even people with one condition can be affected by this particular virus, but those in particular with comorbid conditions or morbid conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, HIV, any situation where lupus, sickle cell, just to name a few, any condition where it can hinder the immune system, because most of the people that have passed away, if not all the people that have passed away, are from people who have comorbid conditions, right? There was a couple of scientists that came on TV that was censored for putting that type of information out there. So this information is not, only coming from me. There's other scientists out there, such as Dr. Shiva. There's another Nigerian scientist. They censored the other day for putting out the information about the hydrochloroquine and how they battle malaria, and it was also being used to battle the coronavirus. I personally don't. It's the word that I'm looking for. I don't advocate for chemical drugs, but if it works for the person and their body, then I would advocate for the person to take that. But I don't advocate for those type of drugs. What I advocate for is for the herbs, and to use various combinations of herbs within the system in order to combat viruses. And that's also a part of Noone as well. That's actually one of the laws in Noone. I can't remember exactly which number there is, but in Noone, it states that to use herbs for perfect health and perfect balance in order to get to the desired result that you're looking for. So as an advocate for Noone, myself, that's what I implore. I actually help to heal a couple of people that were dealing with the coronavirus using herbs, combination of herbs and they had comorbid conditions. This one young lady felt like that was it for her. And I told her that, it's not, just, keep implementing these herbs that I give to you, implement vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin A. All of these particular vitamins are essential in getting our health the way that we needed to get to. And this is where we get the mental health aspect, because
Sibling?
Yes, go ahead.
Let me just pause you right there. Two things on that. You mentioned that the drug that has the malaria drug, pardon self. I recall that Sweden have had a huge or excellent results with said drug, and looking over a period of time when they were using
hydrochloroquine.
Hydrochloroquine, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they used that and they reduced their the quote unquote flare ups of these cases. And then when the World Health Organization said, no, this is junk science, don't mess with it, they stopped, and then their cases soared straight up for about a 2-3 week period. As soon as they reinstituted it, it dropped straight back down. So there's the science and factual anecdotal evidence to confirm that. Just on the cystine that you helped with the herbs and all that, two questions. Did she have the any underlying conditions as you mentioned, and was she doing exercise and stuff as part of her normal regime?
No, she was obese. She had sickle cell, and she had anemia as well. Well, sickle cell and anemia will kind of go hand in hand because it's a blood disorder. And, that's when the body is not getting enough iron in order to carry out its functions. So I had to let her know that, you have to fix the blood issue first. Once you fix the blood issue, then we can move on into implementing certain herbs and certain vitamins, especially one of those vitamins being vitamin D. If you go to the CD, well, let's actually break this up. We're gonna go to the first aspect of what you were speaking about, which is the World Health Organization and the CDC. Taah Nuun would have a little bit more knowledge on the CDC and the WHO and these people sleeping in bed with each other. And I'll move on to the young lady and those vitamins and what they do in order to help heal from the coronavirus. So, Taah Nuun, if you want to speak on the...
I wanted to add real quick, the doctor, the Nigerian doctor, her name is Stella Emmanuel.
Okay.
That's the doctor that was amongst a whole bunch of other non-African doctors that said the same thing about hydroxychloroquine. What they was doing is that before they got the hydroxychloroquine, they used to use chloroquine by itself. That particular drug was causing heart problems and kill people. And that's when they ended up adding the hydroxy to it. That's why it's called hydroxychloroquine. All right. So once you get into that, and then I think Trump mentioned Z-Pack and zinc and some other stuff they take in combination, and that in itself suppresses the stuff with the breathing, because that's one of the problems they was having. It suppressed the breathing and the inhalation. And I don't know if you know about that, but Fauci wrote a report in the NIH, the company he was working for 15 years ago, that said that hydroxychloroquine was a great drug to use for malaria and other stuff. Yep. And when you look at him the date with Trump, he kept saying it was not really tested. It was anecdotal, meaning they only had a few cases that it worked, but they said it was never tried as a trial. That's a lie. And Trump said, they've been using this stuff since the 50s. And so he knew, but what he did was lead by example and showed the people. And again, remember, it was saying underlying people, children and people that was old age. Trump is 77 now. So he's showing you that if he's telling you he's taking it, it's working. But because of the World Health Organization, the CDC, the United Nations, and Fauci and all these
Bill
different
Gates
people.
Foundation as well.
Right. All these, say it again?
The Bill Gates Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates.
All of them is a part of the depopulation. But the thing is, the problem is that what people don't understand is the spiritual aspect, as well as the nature of person, places, and thing. That's one of the things why the nature books are called the nature of nature, because nature of a person, place, or thing, or space, matter, and time, it has to have a nature. And the nature of that means the purpose of it. You understand what was the reason it came into being? You understand why is it here? How long is this going to be here? And what are the things we're supposed to look for in that? I'm gonna try to share my screen. Y'all let me know. Hold on. Hosted, disabled, attendant, screen share. Okay, I can't screen share. Can you enable the screen share, Noble, or you don't know how?
It's supposed to say share screen at the bottom.
Yeah, it's telling me host disabled, attendant, screen sharing. So I don't.
He muted himself, so.
Okay, Noble.
He's trying to do it right now.
Oh, okay.
Give me a sec, sibling. I'm gonna try and work this out. You should be able to do it straight off the bat. Let me try something. Give me one moment.
Okay, here we go. I got it. All right, let me pick. All right, let me know if y'all can see this. Oh, wait a minute. Wrong one. Hold on. That's not it. Hold on. Let me get the right one. 1 second.
Wonders of technology, man.
When it's used right.
Yeah. I hate that.
True indeed.
Hold on. Let me get this again. Let me try this again. Microsoft. I think this is it. Why does it keep showing this though? Hold on, y'all. Wait. I got too many windows open. Okay. Let me delete that. Okay, here we go. Let me know if y'all can see that.
BIAE? Okay, now we see, yeah, the full screen. Mm-hmm.
All right. They got y'all pictures on the right side, though. It's kind of, let me see. Let me try to pull this over some.
No, I mean, you can still see the screen, though.
Yeah.
All the words and stuff, you can still see that.
Y'all can still see it, but I can't.
Oh.
Because it's like it done put all of y'all on the right side of the screen.
I think you can move that if you want. Move it to the bottom, move that.
Oh, yeah, hold on. Wait a minute. There you go. Can y'all still see?
Mm-hmm.
All right. You can see that, Noble?
Yeah, man. All good. All good.
All right. So I'm a jump into this. This is coming from the Bible Interpretations Book 2. All right. And I'm gonna run into this for you to and it's gonna lead into what was going on, what I was talking about. All right, this is number 28. All right. So why are the four similar books about the same story at the beginning of the New Testament instead of one? Because in reorganizing Christianity after the death of Jesus, the Caucasians had no proof of their stories, particularly the parts pertaining to immaculate conception and resurrection of Jesus. The reorganizers of Christianity could not bring out the parts about the immaculate conception and resurrection to scores of years after the death of Jesus, because the people living in his time and for years after knew better. Therefore, they could not publish with success these additions to the story about Jesus to the people who knew better had died. Out in certain parts of the true story had been concealed. It was not until around 325 AD, the Council of Nicaea that reorganized Christianity really began to flourish in the form that we know it today, because the new concepts called immaculate conception and resurrection had been added by that time. So what I'm saying in this case, it's the same thing. The Caucasian system is set up the same way, and nothing, no matter what the topic is, this the same thing in medicine. We didn't know a lot about vaccines. We just came up and grew up. You just heard that word vaccine. You just went to the got shots. No one knew around my time when I came up. Nobody talked about herbs. Nobody talked about what that vaccines or getting shots in the needle didn't exist into a certain time. You understand? So it's the same thing here. The same way they waited to a lot of people had died after Jesus, because Jesus lived around the BC times. So once you get into AD, you still looking at 300 some years. That's how long it took for them to wait before they constructed and reorganized Christianity based off of what they had done to Jesus or Esau Panthera. That's another video that we did. So what I'm trying to do is just lay the premise. So now everything had been reorganized. So now that we are what you would call woke or waking up, people are now starting to go back and look into what was going on prior. All right, so we're going to keep going. The earlier forms of Christianity, such as the beginning of St. John, have the later idea called the Immaculate Conception and the resurrection, in the sense that it is taught in the West. However, original Christianity did start with the Osiris and Set legend, which is based on the true story about Abel and Cain. Christianity began before that, based on Jesus of 2,000 years ago, broke out around 560 or 600 BC, when the Phoenician power began to wane and the Caucasian power began to wax. These earlier forms of Christianity started with Greek philosophers such as Pythagoras, Hippocrates, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, etc., who received their knowledge from the Egyptian mystery system that was headed by Egyptian priests, prophets, and other mystic men. All right, we'll stop here for a second. The same thing here. When you get into the medical industry, they always talk about who they name all the time on Manute.
Isn't it Imhotep? Imhotep is one of the
Greeks. The Greeks who they call the father of medicine to the Greeks.
It's not hip. It's not.
I think it was Hippocrates, right?
Yeah, Hippocrates. It might have been Hippocrates.
The Greek father of medicine. Yeah, Hippocrates. That's him. So when you start going back into that, again, this is the same form. We talking about ignorance, right? Once you get information, you go back and you say, okay, well, the father of so-called Western medicine, they take it back to Hippocrates. But we know that the Greeks learned from the Phoenicians who invaded Egypt and got their information from the Africans. So now we start to see what we didn't know. So that in Noone Science, we call that mental death. So that
Taah,
means, yeah.
Taah, two things before you go any further. You mentioned scroll up a little some.
Okay.
That's it, Cain and Abel, based upon the story about Cain and Abel, Esau and Seth.
Right.
Now, so are we saying that the Cain and Abel story is right and exact?
What we're saying is it's yes and no. And the reason he's saying it, because another part of the book, he tell you that basically the New Testament is based off of the Book of the Dead. So it's pieces of Egyptian information that is the foundation. Now, to say that it's right and exact, you would then have to switch over into the Hindu writings, which A-Noot actually went in on that as well. And A-Noot can answer that far better than I can as far as the Cain and Abel. So A-Noot, you can take him down through there on the Hindu thing, because
Please
we
do.
are
And
saying
then
that the Abel and Cain story is true. But go ahead, A-Noot.
Well, all right, so the Cain and Abel story is basically not a singularity of a person. You know, Cain is a group of people who were born from the Hindu race of people through a process called DNA methylation. I did a video about the origin of the Caucasian on Taah Noon's page. He could tell you where you can find that link to that particular research of how the Caucasian was born out of the Hindu race through a process called DNA methylation. But in the nature books, he makes it known as ghostation, because it's a process of removing melanin away from that particular being and stripping that being of its eye color, hair color, skin color, and other genetic factors that can make that person a particular melanated being, right? So Cain is just short for Caucasian, and Abel is the dark-skinned Hindu that was that was born after Cain was born. So the story goes, especially from the Hindu aspect of things, coming from the Vedas. So if anybody wants the information about Cain and Abel, they'll have to go back to the foreparents of Cain and Abel, which is the Hindus. And you would find that in the Vedic texts. Their ancient text makes it known that Cain and Abel were two brothers, right? But there were really two groups of people. And we call that name plurality in the nature books. And basically that particular story was crunched down to two individuals, because this is how spells work, right? There's different formations of spells, and basically a spell is using true information and altering it, right? So you got the one aspect of a spell, which is using true information and then altering it. Like, say for instance, I bought a car, right? And let's just say the car is a black Infinity, right? And now I go and I tell somebody, oh, you know, I bought a white Infinity, right? So when the person sees it, it says, well, the car is black. The information is correct that you bought an Infinity, but you lied about the color. The same thing with Cain and Abel. The information is correct as far as the two individuals, but it's not two individuals, it's actually a group of individuals, right? And that's where to answer your question, is it a true story? Yes, it was a true story in some aspects, but also it was a lie, and that's how spells work. And that's how the Caucasian was able to trick a lot of humanity, is because these ancient texts, like the Book of Revelations, which is nothing more than the Egyptian Book of the Dead, or rather the the Pem Het Heru, which is the coming forth by day. But we call it the Egyptian Book of the Dead because that was the burial rites books to those going into the afterlife. And the afterlife is nothing more than what we're living in right now. You understand? We're going through that process and change of the underworld. And that's, huh?
Yeah, the Egyptians call it the duet.
Yeah, they call it the duat, right? So we're going through that process of going underground. So Cain and Abel is a true story. The names are false, number one. It's not two individuals, number two, but the story as a collective is true.
Okay. Before you jump back in, Taah Nuun, so do you recall the name from the Vedic text of
Man, it's crazy because the Hindus, they be having long names.
Yes.
They be having some long, like if I'd have to have it in front of me, it's like it's some long names, and it's it's Mithradis, and and it's like it's extremely long. I can't think of it to the top of my head.
Based upon what you said, then,
and the names are linked to who they are. So, like for instance, like the Caucasian, the name, if you looked up the etymology of their name, it is like represents white skin. You know what I'm saying? Like the white skin people. And if you looked up the name of the other group of Hindus, it represented the name of the dark skin Hindus, and it also the name of the Caucasian represented the warlike people. So they were born warring and fighting with their siblings. But yeah.
So I think the Dravidians are the dark skinned Hindus, right?
Yeah. And then Dravidians also had subgroups as well. So the Dravidians, yes, are the original Hindus that created the Caucasian race.
So again, just to add on to that, so would it be correct that it would be Adamites rather than Adam and Eve?
To some retrospect, the Adamites would be the father of the Caucasian race. Not. Go ahead.
The name that you will find the Caucasian in, I think is Pandu.
Correct.
That's the name when the Nuut did the research.
It might be Pandu, and it might be another one too. It starts with a D.
Yeah, it's another one with the D too, because it says here, because you found it in the Mahabharata.
Correct.
That's what you found it at.
Correct.
And his father is, hold on, because I just found it. Let's see, Pandu Wikipedia, and it tells you that Pandu is Sanskrit, and it means yellowish, white, and pale.
There you go.
He was the of Napur, the son of Ambalika. So it's a whole thing. I mean, when the Nuut went into this whole thing, but these are the grandsons of Veda Vyasa.
That's right.
1,000 years ago.
He's the one that created them through certain herbs and stuff like that. That he got from the Mongolian. Taah Nuun did an excellent piece on the herbs and the stuff that they got from the monks, from the Tibetan monks. Man, I'm telling you that video he did was one of the most powerful videos describing. Well, he did the video, so he could explain it better than I could.
I'll make sure that I'll link both videos down below. That video you just spoke of, and then the creation of the Caucasian race. Did you say?
Correct.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a big head scientist named
Yaqub.
What was his name again? The big head scientist.
Yaqub.
Yeah, Yaqub. Wasn't no Yaqub. Wasn't nothing like that. Now there were some environmental factors that led to the creation of the Caucasian, meaning that the moon played a integral part in creating the Caucasian, because they had a ritual where they had to do every Monday, for 16 Mondays straight, They had to eat some kind of, you know, food. These are actual factual rituals that people were doing in order to bring forth the Caucasian race. So it's not something that it's like in today's society, right? When we look at the type of children that's being created, right? You know, some come out good, but then the majority of society is like wayward. You like, why are these kids coming out like that? That's because of the diet of the people. You know, when you're eating uh foods that are detrimental to your brain and your body and things like that, what do you think is going to happen with the future children? They're going to come out sicker. They're going to come out mentally deficient in a lot of qualities, you know, once the quality of the food is not good. So it's the same thing that happened back then, but they were using more potent things to bring forth the Caucasian race, plus the fact that it was the time for it. The Book of Revelations is in the Vedic text under, you know, certain cycles, like, you know, called the man, me and Taah Nuun was just talking about this.
Kali Yuga.
The Kali Yuga. So that's the last stage of what we are seeing right now in the Book of Revelation. So there's like 4 different stages and ages and things like that. So those seers and those sages were the ones that made the Book of Revelations, and they laid down the foundation for the Caucasian. Like when Taah Nuun was just explaining to you that that when Afro Unu made it known that they had to wait a certain amount of time in order for people to die out in order to push that spell. So imagine putting together the Bible in the time that the Vedas was coming out. They'll be like, bruh, you literally copied everything that's here and put it in this book. You know what I'm saying?
Paste.
Exactly. So they gotta wait hundreds of years, right? Then change the language, because they can't write it in Sanskrit. If you write the same book in Sanskrit, they'll be like, yo, that's plagiarizing. Because none of us know Sanskrit, it's easier. Imagine now if we knew Sanskrit, read the Vedas, and we know English as well, read the Bible, we'd be like, yo, this is the same concept.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? The same thing, like that's why they had to confuse our tongues.
Yes.
In the Bible. In the Bible, they told us you have to confuse, but the confusing of the tongue really is getting us away from that the hieroglyphs on the walls.
The metaneta.
The metaneta. If we understood the metaneta, we understood Sanskrit, we'll understand English, we'll understand all languages just learning the metaneta. Because all languages derive from the metaneta. All languages. I don't care what language it is, they all derive from the metaneta. No language is brand new. There's no brand new language. Our African ancestors brought that forth to the world, and it branched off from there. Pantheism is what brought that forward. But before that, we had Noon. I know a lot of people are saying, well, how can Noon come before pantheism and Noon just came back again? That's because things can die and re-resurrect themselves. It can become a lesser form of itself and then become a grander form of itself. So that's what we're seeing right now, is that Noon is a compilation of information. That's why when you said that after Unu create Noon, he didn't create Noon. What he did was he re-resurrected Noon, because Noon is always there in different forms. Even in religion, there's Noon. Even in ancient Egyptian philosophy, even in Greek mythology and philosophy, there's Noon. As a matter of fact, in the books he says Nous is Nupu in Noon. Nous being the head line of reasoning in Greek mythology and philosophy. So not to bounce too far back from the stories going back to Adam and Eve, but that's just giving you a retrospect of what Noon is and how Noon came to being. So when somebody like Afro Unu, who's mentally resurrected through, I'm gonna use some terms here that you guys have never heard me compile, but when he was mentally resurrected by the photons being the unit of light that comes from the sun, right? and is able to connect with the neural transmitters and also the neural connection in his brain, what happens is that it gives you that aha moment. And once that connection is made, then the person understands who they are through the hippocampus, because the hippocampus deals with the memory of a person, right? This is why you see me wearing this. This is the Sankofa bird, right? If you look at the Sankofa bird and then you look at the hippocampus, they're the exact same structure. Our African ancestors understood that the Sankofa bird and the hippocampus were synonymous with each other, because the Sankofa bird represented going back and getting information, right, and bringing it back to yourself and recalling it. The same thing with the hippocampus. Once you charge the hippocampus with photons that understands it, then you can recall information, like he said in the Bible interpretation, that you'll be able to recall ancient history and bring it back to the present time. So going back now to the Adam and Eve and the Caucasian and things of that nature, in order to bring forth a spell, that's what they have to do. They have to change the language. They have to wait a period of time in order for certain things to die out, because the people who back like Taah Nuun just read had to, because they knew better. And after that, you have to force it upon the people. So there's 3 stages in how that happens with the Caucasian. So you got any questions about that? No.
I do, but I'm gonna come back to that. I want Taah to continue with his part of the presentation that he was doing,
Yes.
and I've taken some notes, sibling. Don't worry about that. There, we're gonna get back to that. But Taah, come through with them and continue off where you left off.
All right, let me go back to screen sharing real quick.
Oh, and whilst you're doing that, I totally forgot, and I should have did this on the part 1. Siblings, make sure you got your pen and paper ready. Yeah, pause when necessary, and open up the Google page and do the rudimentary research and verification which is needed. This is going to be some heavy science on this build if you haven't already heard. Continue, Taah.
And I'm sending you the videos through your Instagram, the link, so you can put all that in the video, the origin of the Caucasian, and I'll send you the priests and nuns and proof and all of that. So I'll send you everything you need, so whenever you put the video up, you can link it, and everybody can click on that, go to the websites and all that.
Excellent. Thanks, Sibling.
Yeah, not a problem. All right, so now, the earlier forms of Christianity, such as the beginning of St. John, did not have the later ideas called the Immaculate Conception and the resurrection in the sense that it is taught in the West. And a lot of people could do their research and just look in the Latin Vulgate part. They tell you that the I think it was the Trinity is not there, and they have different Latin versions. But the older you go back, that the Trinity is not there, or the Immaculate Conception is not there either. So that's just that stuff that is made known. But you have to do a lot of heavy research past that, and you have to basically go into knowing about philosophy, because religion came later. The Greeks was heavy on philosophy first, which is just the love of studying. So they dealt with philosophy, and those people are the ones that kept Rome from being able to create another form of Judaism, which is what Christianity is. Christianity is just a repackaged version of Judaism in the way it works for white people in their favor, because before that, in Judaism, it would be part of pantheism. That's why the star on their Bible represents the sun, which represents sun knowledge. And that only after they got into about 325 AD with the Nicaea Council, that's when Constantine talking about he had that dream and he seen a cross in the middle of the sun and all of that crap. But again, it's still a solar symbol. And that's what the whole thing with the whole Jesus thing goes back to, sun worship, which before that it was Mithra and Zoroastrianism, because they got the information from dark peoples, which is the African and the Phoenician race, who were worshiping a lot of gods, but the top god would be Ra or Re, no
Hey,
matter
Taah,
what. Yeah.
can you go into a little bit of Zoroastrianism, please?
Well, I don't really know too much about it, but I do know that Zoroastrianism was the religion of Iran.
Yeah.
That was the god of fire and sun worship. And Zoroastrianism did influence a lot of the Book of Revelation. That book that we put out, hold on, I'm gonna tell you. Newt, you remember the name of it?
Which book is that?
Hold on. What is it? The Cycles and the Seasons?
You talking about the one that we put out?
Yeah.
Yeah, the cycles and season of the one supreme being.
That book there, that Newt revolved the whole 22 chapters of the Book of Revelation. That book, by doing the research that we were doing together, and the Newt was taking point lead on that, is how we was able to really, really dig into the metaphysics of what Zoroastrianism did. And again, the seven churches.
It was mainly star worshiping and star gazing.
Right.
They were like what you would call astronomers, and they would watch the stars and their movements, right? And that's what Zoroastrianism mainly brought forth, was the movement of stars. That's why a lot of these Hindu sages and seers were star watchers, you know, and they dealt heavy in zodiac and what's the branch of science that deals with the stars?
Astronomy?
Astrology. Yeah, astronomy, astrology,
Yeah.
however you want to name it. You know, this Caucasian society says it's a pseudoscience, but it's not.
But similar to the Dogon were doing the same thing, weren't they?
Correct. But you got to remember, once again, how a spell works is that they take something that's true and they alter it. That's why with Noon, there's no alteration. It's telling you the bare truth, and that's it. There's no story in Noon. You will not find one story of a man was walking in a forest and he stepped on a green leaf, and no, you're not gonna find that in Noon. What you're gonna find in Noon is these are the facts, and that's it. There's no stories. There's no, Afro-Unu woke up in the bed one day and the stars were swinging across the sky and like a hammer and an anvil. Like, you're not gonna find that fantastic language that you'll find in the Bible, that you'll find in most religions, that you'll find in the Dogon tribe with with a lot of those things going on. What you're gonna find in Noon is just pure facts, and that's what people need in this day and time. I remember, we could go back to the first question you asked: how can Noon help us in this day and time? We need pure, unadulterated facts with no sprinkles, no sugar, no syrup, none of that stuff. Just pure facts. So I'm gonna let Taah Noon finish what he gonna say. Taah, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can y'all see my screen?
Yep.
You still on the BIAE?
All right, okay. All right, so let me finish that. All right. The early form of Christianity, such as the beginning of St. John, did not have the later ideas called the Immaculate Conception and the Resurrection in the sense that it is taught in the West. However, original Christianity did start with the Osiris and Set legend, which is based on the true story about Abel and Cain.
You see that? The original Christianity. So Christianity definitely started in Africa. You understand? That right there is letting you, and that's why he put it in bold letters, that Christianity originated before Christianity originated, before there was a Jesus Christ.
Right. And a lot of the conscious community will tell you that Christianity came from Africa, but that's not that's not true, because when you deal with words, as soon as you say a word, it takes you to a particular language and eventually a race of people. So if you say Christianity, Christianity only goes back to Christos. That's Greek. So Greek in Greece is not in Africa. So you can't say Christianity. You have to say what word was it. But Christ, who they call in Christ, Esau Panthera, lived in the later part of the BC, which is the son of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. So that right there's like 47 BC going forward. So before that, you're not going to find what they're talking about. But the Osiris and Set story, right? Legend, Osiris and Set, that is not only that is a metaphysical thing, because Osiris and Set is identified in Noon. Osiris is the spirit god, and Set is like the whip god. And that means that the gods use Set, which is another way to say Satan, as the scapegoat for what the gods are doing to cover up their evil. Like, for example, if y'all go and watch a video that I put up called a video I did about Moloch and the child sacrificing God in the Bible, Kemet, Sumer, and I think and the UN connection. That's the same God in the Bible. Moloch, Osiris, Usir, whatever name they want to decorate, it's the same God. So by them not knowing that, you have two versions. You have the religious version paint Osiris as this all-loving God, but they use a title that's not a name. So it's a title. It's like me saying, "Oh, I worship doctor of the hospital." Okay, what doctor and what hospital? It's a title. You would never know just off of that alone. That's why when we was in slavery, right, for 300 years, we weren't allowed to read the Bible ourselves. And once the last part of it, they let us, read it and learn it, but we didn't learn nothing about language. So, had the pastors that came in and they turned into the coons later on. And
Hey, Taah.
yeah.
Let me put some contextuality onto that as well, because when our foreparents were prisoners of war back then, and you are 1,000% correct. There were written laws to say that we couldn't gather together more than 2 people, etc. We couldn't read. The only thing
that sound like what's going on now with this pandemic. Can't gather with more than 2 people,
Yeah, exactly.
But Gad, keep going. I didn't mean to cut your film, but that's something that's just something that I know that peaked. Soon as you said that, it peaked in my mind. Like, whoa, that's what's happening now. We can't gather and do it. It's like they reforming another form of slavery. But go ahead.
This is it, man. Prisoner of war syndrome is what they're trying to reenact again. But so we as you've said, Taah, not able to read any books, apart from the Biblios collection of books, etc. And then when that was done via, these house Negroes, should we say, or house pastors, who wasn't really doing what they should be doing. But let's put again contextuality and detail onto this. In the Smithsonian, they've got one of what is deemed as the Slave Bible. Okay. And that indeed Slave Bible isn't 1,000+ pages. It's about 200 something pages long.
Correct.
And all it's got in there is subservient language and scriptures saying not to not to challenge your master, all the simpleness, all the fluff basically. So then we can fast forward to the ancestor Nat Turner, and he clearly got hold, and as per the reenactment that was done in regards to that quote unquote blockbuster that came out,
the full Bible,
he was able to get his hands upon, as you say, and the full thing, and read the whole volume of the book and saw himself clearly within. And hold on, wait a minute. We got Yashael, Israel, we got Moses, we got all of these people in Africa. They did this. I can read Deuteronomy. I can read Psalms 91, changing the names of the saints, that Israel no longer will be no more in remembrance. that fits us. Let
So
me
imagine,
use.
now getting the you got the Bible, now you got the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and now you got Noon, which is Christianity on 999 million. So it's not that Noon is a religion, it's the factual aspect of Christianity. Like Christianity has taught Father, Son, Holy Ghost, right, as a Trinity. In Noon is space, matter, and time. Space being the Father, matter being the Mother, and time being the combiner of the two, letting you know that you exist. All right. So we have principles in Noon that's likened to Christianity, but put into proper context, because it's not put into proper context of Christianity. And just like you just said, which was a great connection, that you not connection, but you already knew that with the Nat Turner, actually, and they don't even mention that he had the full Bible, because I think it was the white lady slave owner that gave
Yes.
the full Bible.
Mm-hmm.
The white slave owner said, "Okay, Nat, you can read the full Bible," while they was only getting the 200 pages, the other slaves. And that's when he said, "We not supposed to be living like this. This is crazy." So you can see that information is does what? Unlocks the mind. You remember when in the start, we always gonna come back to this question that you asked in the start. What can Noon do to help the people now in this pandemic? It starts with the mental, and that's what happened with Nat Turner. Before he even got physical and resurrecting the people and freeing the people, it started with the mind. He got the full Bible, right? So everything works in stages. He got the full Bible now. After the full Bible, now you're going to get information and knowledge that it comes from where? It comes from ancient texts called the Per Em Heru, which is the coming forth by day, and also from the Vedic texts and the Mahabharata and different books of that nature. And now you're getting the full truth of it, which is Noon. So when everybody is going over the whole Egyptian thing and they're going over the whole Hindu thing, and they're going to have to come right to Noon. So we're just saying that eventually everybody that follows some kind of religion will be led right back into Noon. I know it's a very broad statement and powerful statement to make as individuals who actually follow it now, and it probably sounds like, with your Christian, they'd be like, oh, eventually you're going to see the power of Jesus and things like that. So I'm saying eventually you're going to see the power of information and knowledge. So I'm not going to tell you the information of power in Jesus and telling people to worship Afro Unu, because it ain't about worshiping Afro Unu. It ain't about worshiping a star. It ain't about worshiping any type of physical things. It's about understanding and reasoning and knowing where it is that you need to go. That's why I made the statement that eventually everyone will be in Noon and understanding how Noon is being portrayed to the world and how they can help them in this pandemic.
Proper education always corrects errors.
Yep.
Peace. Continue, Taah.
Yep.
All right. Let me get back to where I was at.
Actually, hold up. Actually, this since we got this pause and you get yourself back ready where you was on that. Since you was just speaking, let me get back into, you was talking about Cain and Abel, Adamites, etc. And Africa. Now, does science, as we're dealing with science, Noon Science, science came about some time ago, and based upon archaeological finds, etc., they came out with Lucy being the oldest woman, and they're saying was it South Africa or something? Was Lucy from?
Uh-huh.
Right. and then building up the information, the claims, reference, where life started, the cradle of civilization, etc., etc. When we look at what Lucy, we're let's use just the science terms. We're Homo sapiens sapien, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Lucy was a hominin, right? She was a little monkey.
According to what they say, that she was part monkey.
She wasn't Homo sapiens. She wasn't Homo sapiens sapien. She was just about Homo erectus. I don't think she was even coming under the term of Homo erectus, right?
Correct, because she was able to stand upright and walk. She was a biped.
Biped, exactly, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I have some issues with that, because you get a lot of people who immediately start talking about, which is correct, Africa, Mother Africa, etc., all these kind of stuff, and then they start referencing Lucy, and I'm thinking, well, why are you trying to connect yourself to some a non-Homo sapien? I mean, we could just grab an orangutan at thing and say, yo, this this orangutan's here, so you know what I mean, this is who we need to deal with. But we can go to where you are in the wilderness of North America, and what's the woman's bones that we got there that are dated? Is it a male? There's a male and a female bones that have been dug up and allegedly dated, and they're supposed to be older, right?
Mm-hmm. See, the problem is that the Caucasian also, again, distorted how to describe a race of people. They describe races of people by skin color, and certain non-genetic factors. White people, black people. They also describe people by you could describe people by land mass and land structure from where they come from, but countries are businesses. You can't describe somebody by a business. Like, for instance, a person can't be American as far as United States of America is concerned. A person can't be German, or whatever, because that is a political business
Corporation.
Correct. These are all countries are corporations. You understand? So that doesn't denote your race and who you are. What denotes your race is your hair texture. And the hair texture is a telltale sign to who you are and what it is that you and what branch and family that you come from. So those with kinky hair, nappy hair, such as myself, Taah Nuun. I don't know. Do you have kinky hair?
Of course, sibling.
No, I gotta ask.
Come on, sibling. I got that 90s of woolly curly hair, man. Come on, I'm original, man. You know what I'm talking about?
Beautiful. So yeah, so the kinky hair is a telltale sign of if you're African or not. No matter where you're born, you could be born on Mars. As long as you got kinky hair, then that means that you're from of African descent, or from the sun rather, because you have sun heat genes that causes your hair to kink up, right? Straight hair also. So all of these are genetic factors that the Caucasian is not mentioning, because genetic factors cause your hair to come out naturally, that the way it's supposed to, out of your head. So when you look at someone like Lucy, who might have been a monkey, they want to link that to black people. They want to say, well, Lucy was an African monkey that produced African people.
Yep.
We don't come from monkeys at all. Our lineage does not come from monkeys. As a matter of fact, the link between the monkey and the human race is that there was a common ancestor for other races of people, not the African race.
We're talking about the rhesus monkey. We're talking the rhesus monkey thing.
No, well, the rhesus monkey is also not the common ancestor of the Caucasian and the Hindus and peoples of that nature. This particular monkey man, which is a half monkey, half person existed millions of years ago, and that particular branch of monkey man split to monkey on one side and split to human beings on another. It's sort of like jaguars, lions, tigers. They all had a common ancestor.
Yeah.
The jaguar went one way, the lion went another way, the tiger went another way. So they're all felines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of the feline ancestry, but then they branched off. It's the same thing with the Caucasian. Well, not the Caucasian. The Caucasian is a subhuman from the Hindu, but the Hindu himself comes from a human slash man that a human slash monkey that existed millions of years ago. This particular being does not exist, and they don't identify it, because if they identified it, right, that would destroy the entire theory that also black people come from their lineage. But our lineage is totally different from theirs.
So could we be talking about this Yeti Sasquatch, something Bigfoot thing, something similar to that?
The Yeti and Sasquatch, that's to me personally, that's part of their lineage. That monkey, you know, I've never seen any evidence that produced that it says is actually real.
Mm-hmm.
You know, every time they always catch it on TV running, running. So I don't want to speak on it and it end up not being real. So I've never personally did my own full research on it to know if a Sasquatch is real or not, but I've never seen one really. Only on when you watch these little YouTube videos where you see a Sasquatch turn around like and then they run away and it's like, what? And then you never see it again with all this high technology and tracking down black people. You can't track down a Sasquatch? Yeah, okay. So I know Taah Nuun sounded like he was ready.
Yeah, come on, Taah Nuun.
But I wanted to let it be known the Afro-Unu did name the orangutan and the chimpanzee as part of the descendancy or the ancestry.
He said that that's what they say.
Mm.
He said that's what they say, not that he's saying that that's what it is. He said that's what they say. I know what you're talking about. I just wanted to just make.
Now, boy, when you talk about the orangutan and the hold on, let me look this up real quick.
It's in book 2.
Hold on. Then we'll jump back to what you call it. Give me a second.
The science, man. I hope everybody's keeping up with this here, man. I'm most definitely doing the cross-comparative research and most definitely fact-checking, because some of the information we're obviously going over, I would say, number one, not many people have heard, and if they have heard of it, they've got a very different understanding and understanding of what is what. So most definitely study to show thyself approved.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. That's in the nature book, but I'm talking about in the noun ball introduction.
You see what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I seen that.
I'll read that part right now because I got it pulled up.
All right, but I got the book 2 verb. I'm in book 2 of the noun ball. That's where I was going.
Okay, so you found that already. If you found it, then you could just pull it up.
Yeah, I'm gonna just read this part.
Okay, good.
Let this audience can see it that way, and we can jump back to the BIE. Or just give me a second.
No
my screen real quick, so we want them to be able to see. Like I said, I'm gonna make sure you.
We'll be here all night. You keep asking these questions about.
This is what the quest is. Simply, this is all about the quest, isn't it? At the end of the quest, you know what I mean. We get to the answer, and the answer it has to be filled with questions.
Noone is the Afro-Unu made it known that Noone is the question and answer science. So there's nothing that you can't ask that we can't answer. I promise you. Nothing that you can't ask. I'm telling you, Noone goes into every single thing that you could possibly think of.
Right knowledge and right thinking.
It's done in about 11 books. 11 books that's about maybe 12 or 1,300 pages. That's the span of how many books there is and the pages.
And it's not like, it's not like and I won't even give them any play by mentioning the names, but it's not like other folk who just put out pamphlets, you know, like a 13-page pamphlet and call that a book. You know what I'm talking about?
We know exactly what you're talking about, and I know Taah Nuun right there got his hands rubbing together right now.
Every time we mention them or they see us do something, we had to literally force their hand to give up the word Nawapu and Nawapin because we did the due diligence, and York himself had to admit it. Like I said, once we've been fighting them since 2014 to about 2019 heavy, and once A-Noot added and that's about 2018 when he broke down, because he had been done it before that. They got caught up because A-Noot did it like 2015, 2016 where he found the word Nawapu was in the Metanetta. Got videos on that too. And York had been saying years previously that Nawapu came from Arabic. So he got 2-3 books he put out, you know, what is the word Nawapu, where the word Nawapu come from. And I got those books and I used those in my videos to point out that York already had nailed himself in the coffin by saying he knew where the word came from. But once A-Noot went into the Metanetta and seen it and showed the glyphs, it was it. It just took them, because they was constantly plagiarizing from the nature books and they kept throwing out those comic books back to back. They were, a lot of the Nawapians who was over them were not aware of the serious beatings that was going on, right? So by the time they put out a book and claiming it, Prince York went on Sarnetta when he was doing his fake debate with Jabari, and we took that video and broke it down and showed where they stole A-Noot's information that he put on Facebook. And in the group, and like about a year after that, they came clean and said, yo, we finna get up the word Nawapian, Taah Nuun, them can have it. They threw the towel in, and then York sent a message through Prince York to ask us to send him all the information we found on the Nawapu. Why, nigga? For what? You supposed to have been the one who brought it. Why you want to? I got all that. I got the screenshots when Prince York came under the video and all that. That proved that we had destroyed them and exposed York, had stole Afro-Uno's identity and been claiming it since 1990.
Well, look, just up on this screenshot you've got up on here, I mean, this is blatant plagiarism. I mean, all of this stuff that I'm seeing here, I know from, you know, building with and reading Nawabian information. And at no point was there any credit given to Afro-Uno or any mention of this here.
Nope.
He even stole the name Amanubi Rakavatar. A-Noot supposed to have been did a video breaking down the whole name.
Yeah.
We fished out original article that Afro-Uno under the name Amanubi Rakavatar had written a magazine, the Liberator magazine, in 1966, and York was in prison in 1964. So we killed him with that too. Like how he writing a book when he was in jail for 3 years, and the same time he told a lie and said he was out showing Malcolm around Mecca when he was in Mecca. And we got his jail records that when Malcolm had went to Mecca before, I think York got locked, but then York got locked when Malcolm was over there. So how you in jail in the U.S. and you being Malcolm X's guide at that time? And then Malcolm said he was guided by a little boy. York was like 19 at the time, somewhere up in there. So like you telling lies. Like I think York was between 17, something like that, in let me see, 1945 to 1964. How many years is that?
That's 19 years.
Okay, so York was 19 when he went to jail in 64. So how you saying a 19-year-old is a little boy? And Malcolm said in his own book it was a little boy. If you look at the movie Malcolm X, they show you that Malcolm was being taken around Mecca by a child. So it's no way. So all this stuff, we got the books that with the screenshot showing that York didn't care who he lied on. He had no respect for black people because he plagiarized from Afro Unu, which he built his whole Nawapian cult off of these books, the Nine Ball and the Bible interpretations, and gave no credit, and then remixed it all the way into some other foolishness. And so this is why we kept doing what we was doing, because they not only were they lying, they was also distorting the true information that was sent to the planet for our race and other races. Then they also distorted it, and it was making money off of it, which his wife and them should have been getting that money. And they have sold thousands of books with no barcodes on them, because if they did that, that'd be a problem. So all of the books you will see, most of their books, no barcodes. And that's a sign of criminality.
Yeah, no ISBN.
That's right. No ISBN number, none of that. So that in itself tells you why, you know, they're a fraud on many, many levels. But to do that to somebody of your own race, and that was the one that nature chose, and that person is deceased, that shows that you have no respect for nothing and no one. And so that's why when your listeners go to my YouTube, you'll see that documented very strongly, and also our, you know, Noon versus, you know, the Sabians or Wu Nawapu Facebook group, where we went heavy. We done, like I said, from 2014 all the way up to now. Even recently, we just found out that young Pharaoh tried to jump in the game and did a video called Space 9 Ether. The whole video was incorrect. He did it a year ago, but he threw it up on the gram and the Nuke seen it. So we supposed to be addressing that too, because all they doing is telling lies. And when you ask them to explain, they can't. But anyway, but this right here is talking about 6 ethers, 9 ether in death. Just as mankind is taught in physical death. In count 1, we define 9 ether as a combination of all existing gases and chemicals. Like 9 ether, 6 ether is conscious gases, but 6 ether is not the complete combination of all gases. And that's another problem too, because Pharaoh did not tell you what 9 ether was. He just kept saying 9 ether is a gas, it's an ether. You know, you can meditate and pull it and manifest stuff with it. It's foolishness. He never once will use these terms, because these are code words. These are trigger words. When you say a combination of all gases and chemicals, or you understand, he didn't mention 6 ether either. And he tried to make it sound like it was just the science of space, but it's not the science of space. Noon is science.
Taah, let me just interrupt you real quick. Am I correct in saying, based upon what I've learned via the Nuwabians, that 6 ether beings are Caucasian folk?
No.
That is a lie that York taught them. Go ahead, you can drop it.
Oh man, I mean, I'll give some context right now. All right, so 9 ether, right, is the combination of all existing gases and chemicals, right? So you can leave that page up, Taah Nuun. I like that page. Leave that page up. When Afro Unu is making that assertion, right, you have to look, especially in research, what in the world is all existing gases and chemicals, which means that we will have to go all the way back to where? To the beginning of time to understand what created all gases and chemicals, or what energy is doing this, right? So when he uses the word 9 ether, let's look at a word like ether. What is ether, right? Ether in one retrospect is gas. In another retrospect, it's fire. In another retrospect, it's what you would call plasma, right? So whenever you see the word ether, know that he's talking about plasma, which is the 4th state of matter, right? So you have solid, liquid, gas, right? And then you have plasma, which is a very hot substance, right? So the sun is made of plasma, right? And that's 6 ether plasma, which is and it's also a separation of gases. So you got hydrogen. What they tell you that all elements come from the sun. Like certain elements, you got hydrogen, you got helium, you got calcium, potassium, all those little trace elements and things like that. But it's a separation of it. So what is the combination of all existing gases and chemicals? If we go back before the Big Bang occurred, right? Before this process of what the scientists call the Big Bang, there was a process called inflation. And inflation is what caused the universe to start from a particular point and expand outward. And that expanding happened with at that particular time these chemicals called white hot plasma. So white hot, and we know that it's not white, and we know if you want to say it's hot plasma, yeah, but at that particular time light didn't exist. Photons did not exist as yet, right? So these particular subatomic particles, which Caucasians call the God particle, which they call it the Higgs boson, right? The Higgs boson is what they call the God particle, right? And that particular, in Noone science, that would be considered a brain newt because it's a subatomic particle. Then the Higgs boson is the initiator to the fermion. The fermion is another subatomic particle, which would be the female aspect of nature. The boson, the Higgs boson, will be the male aspect, even though fermions can be bosons as well, right? So the Higgs boson initiates contact with the fermion, and they start to spin off each other. If you go into quantum physics, you'll see what I'm talking about. There's about 12 different subatomic particles, or even a little bit more than that, right? So there's bosons, fermions, gluons, muons, all different types of subatomic particles, right? And these particular subatomic particles combine together to form 9 ether. And 9 ether is a radiation as well. And the remnants, how do we know that 9 ether actually existed, right? If you look into the science of understanding how the universe started, there's something called a cosmic microwave background. And the cosmic microwave background is leftover radiation from the beginning of the universe. So we can see the radiation of 9 ether in the cosmic microwave background, right? But you can't see a 9 ether, you can't detect it, you can't measure it or anything like that, because at this particular point in time is not existent, right? So science, and it also exists in different forms as well as existing as far as all existing gases and chemicals. So when he says things like 6 ether and 9 ether, and then York comes along and says, yeah, we're 9 ether beings, we know that's a lie, because you're supposed to be what they would be called white hot plasma. If you were white hot plasma, then I would say, yeah, you 9 ether, but you're not white hot plasma. As far as exactly, you're not a subatomic particle called a boson, right? So a boson, when it spins off, it gives off 9 ether energy, right? 9 ether energy is the radiation from the brain newt that's being given off. You understand what I'm saying? I would have to.
Yeah, it's deep. I know where you're going. Some of the terminology I haven't actually heard. This is what they're messing around with over in Switzerland, etc., with that
With the
Large Hadron
CERN.
Collider.
Yeah, with the CERN. Yeah.
CERN, yeah.
Yeah. So they what they're doing is they're smashing atoms together to
Mhm.
create the remnants of what 9 ether would be, right? But they can't create it because only the sun can do it, right? And
Okay, that's what they've put out. I'm gonna interject something a little different. That's what they're saying they're doing. They're trying to replicate, the quote unquote Big Bang and all this stuff, right?
correct.
Why have they got damn Shiva in front of that there? Huh?
Because you know why? Because they are copiers and they're alterers, like the Bible. For instance, everything they do, you can see in retrospect to what's happening. All right, so like the Bible is a copy book of what was past events. The CERN is just a copied version of what would be happening in the Big Bang. But see, the thing about what they're doing with the CERN and all these large hadron colliders, the LHC and the LIC and the whatever the case they want to call it, what's happening is that if you, and you know why this is so dangerous? Let's just say they're able to create a boson again, right? A natural boson, not just one that they created in their laboratory, but a natural boson. You know what's going to happen? When the universe has started from a tiny point of a flame or fire, right? And it expanded into an unlimited universe like we're seeing now, what you think is going to happen on planet Earth?
Finito, done.
Exactly. You end up killing everybody. Because now what's going to happen is that thing is going to look to grow.
Exactly. It's going to eat. It's going to do what fire does and seek oxygen.
It's going to destroy the machine. It's going to destroy the planet. And it's going to destroy everything. Now, granted, these particular subatomic particles took millions of years for it to get to where, you know, to actually be in a universe before we can even get to the Big Bang stage, because they claim that the Big Bang happened and then things started creating. No, the Big Bang is actually after the fact. You know what I'm saying? It's not before, it's after the fact.
But isn't this the Big Bang as far as I've researched, and obviously clearly I would say you've done a lot more research in this area than me, but isn't the Big Bang theory, emphasize the word?
No. It's not a theory. And the reason why it's not a theory is because when you have very strong chemicals and gases of opposite charges creating a universe, they're gonna have a very big pushback. It's the same way with lightning. When lightning is basically positive and negative charges coming together and causing a big bang. Yeah. On a smaller scale, a lightning is a big bang.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So yeah, when opposite gases and chemicals come together, they're gonna cause a big bang. But the 9 ether energy is the white hot plasma that existed right after, and where they had these subatomic particles started spinning off each other. The fermion and the boson connected to each other, and they started spinning off each other, and they caused a fire to occur. Once that fire occurred, it started to attract matter, and that's when the gravity and black holes and things like that came together, and that's what it. Huh?
See, I'm glad you got onto that part, because that's what I think that these beings are trying to do. I think they're trying to open up black holes and portals and all kind of stuff.
They've done it, because all black holes is basically gravitational pull of space. Space is all around us. Space is not something that's separate from us. A lot of people think that space is further out there, but space is here with us too. Matter is in between space.
Well, NASA came out recently, 2-3 months ago, or start of the year, to say that the space is within our own atmosphere.
I just said that. So we are in between space as well. We occupy space. You understand what I'm saying? So we're in between it as well. So you can create black holes and things like that. They've created black holes right here on the planet. You understand what I'm saying? And basically black holes are just vacuums of energy and force fields. And that's how the universe started, with a massive vacuum black hole. You need space in order to create.
So where's that? So when they're creating these black holes, where is whatever is entering it going?
It's destroying it. A black hole is only going to destroy unless it's creating.
Okay.
So nothing can escape it, regardless of I know they're going to be like, oh, we can go in another dimension. Okay, jump in and let us know how it is. You're never gonna escape it because it's a vacuum. It tears stars apart in seconds. It tears stars apart in seconds. Like it rips stars apart. You know what I'm saying? And it's it's almost like a meat grinder, right? So it tears it apart and it actually redoes it again to recreate new stars and have that process start over again. But back to the 9 ether thing, they can't. Pharaoh, none of them can explain that the way that I've just done it. And the simple way to tell you is just that it's white hot plasma, but it's not really white because light did not exist then. That's why when I said before, I said photons is what awakened the mind of Afro-Unu, because he was already born with it. Like we're already born with certain innate special capabilities to be woken up. So it's like one end of the receiver waiting for the other end to connect with it.
Yes.
Because photons are units of light, but guess what? Photons are also units of information. If you look up the definition of a photon, it tells you that a photon is a unit of information. It carries information, but it's massless.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It doesn't have any mass, but it carries information. So then the sun is giving off photons, which means what? It's giving off information. That's why you have certain things called photosynthesis,
Yes.
because of the photons. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when you start to connect science with spirituality, it all starts to make sense. So when Afro-Unu is saying 9 ether, he's really saying 9, which is the highest number in the universe or the highest quality of things. Ether being plasma, which is what? The highest form of plasma, which is white hot plasma. Not really white. So I'm going to change the name. Black hot plasma.
Yeah.
All right, we will call it black hot plasma. And that existed in their science, right? Right after the boson, which is the subatomic particles, started to collectively come together and spin off each other. After they spun off each other, they created a fire. And then that fire created the white hot plasma, and it started to grow. And then it created a black hole, right? All of these things are happening because space now had the time to do what it had to do. And it's happening over a long period of time. And as these chemicals now that they're set and they come together, they cause friction. And that's when you start to see the explosions and things like that. And that's where you get the Big Bang from. But the Big Bang came way after. All right.
Come to you, Taah.
All right. So I'm going to get to this and jump back to it. So basically he's saying here, all right. 9 ether as the combination of all existing gases and chemicals, like 9 ether, 6 ether is conjugate gas, but 6 ether is not the complete combination of all gases and chemicals, meaning it is void of the gases and chemicals that are necessary for universal life because it lost them through age and exhaustion. This is how 9 ether became 6 ether by nature of nature. The zodiac is 6 ether in the atmosphere of the universe and in animal flesh and blood. Again, 6 ether is 9 ether in death. The sun emanates 9 ether during the universal summer, universal life, and 6 ether during the universal winter, universal death. Ether is conscious fire gases. All right. So, and also that's how another reason it is basically saying what I was saying, that the Caucasian can't be part of 6 ether because 6 ether is fire, burning. And the Caucasian and anything that burns have to be dark and also have to represent a type of life. And the Caucasian race don't represent life. He represents death. And that's why his religion he has what's called the Holy Ghost, and the ghost is white. So they know who their spiritual powers are, but they're not going to tell you that ghost and 3 ether is synonymous. Like we got in our books, it breaks it down. Afro was just using ghosts in the 60s when he put this out. But as later on in the 90s, he started putting the 3 ether in there, which is the scientific term and the number of how these gases had disseminated down to the level to produce Caucasian people by way of the moon. All right, so anyway, it says zodiac is the 6th ether in the atmosphere. Okay, we want all the ethers, conscious fire gases. The winter season of the universe produced the gibbon monkey and a branch of the gibbon evolved into the Indian race. All right, the Indian race.
Remember I said that when I told you that the monkey man came before the human, and then it split apart. You got that, Noble? Remember when?
Yes.
So it is that came first, then the human came after. All right. Yeah.
This is like 1971 when he put this out. The type of people that live in India and Pakistan and their descendants on the other parts of the planet. Phoenicians and Indians have crossbred down through the years, and many American Indians were crossbred with Mongolians. Like the chimpanzee and orangutan, the gibbon came forth from the waters in Indonesia. So this is very important. So these animals came from the waters. The same way the Phoenician race came out of the ground as well. They came out of
specifically from the Mariana Trench.
Right. And the Nuke did that too on a video called The Origin of the Moon. So I got to make sure I link you with that as well. Because all this stuff is the heavy research that we was doing to find this. And see, the key with Noone Science is, which all other people fail, is when Afro Unu write the way he writes, your proof comes in being able to find that same information in mankind's academic, because they are not going to call it what Afro Unu called it, but the way Afro Unu writes certain things, you will pick it up when Sound Right Reason wants you to pick it up.
And the reason why he didn't use their terms is because most of their terms are named after these Caucasian people. Like that term I gave y'all, Higgs boson. Higgs come from a scientist named Higgs, and boson comes from a Hindu scientist named I forgot his name, but his last name is Bose something. But Higgs boson is not. First of all, before there was even a person called Higgs and another one called Bose, that subatomic particle was the first thing to exist. So the Caucasian came to be the last one on the planet to be naming something, so that's why he had to strip the name of Higgs boson and these things to call it brain newts. What they are, that's exactly what they are. They are brain particles, because they are nucleus. They create nucleuses of larger entities. So that's why he called it brain newts, and from there they go forward. But yeah, like he just said, that's why Afro Unu renamed it. All these things need to be. That's why I told y'all just now, instead of calling it white hot plasma, it should be called 9 ether. You know what I'm saying? That's really what it is. There's no why would you name it white? And the color white didn't exist. First of all, there was no light when that was happening. Light didn't come till after the sun started shining.
The triple stage of darkness.
That's right. Everything was dark. Everything was dark. There was no light until the sun started to shine. But go ahead, keep going, Taah.
Okay, so like the time the chimpanzees and gibbon took for their respective developments into a race, a branch of the orangutan also took 12 million years to evolve into a physically erect people called the Mongolian race.
The stand up
are people like the Japanese and Chinese and their descendants in other parts of the earth. And it's not hard to understand, because when you look into their culture, they got monkey kung fu styles. It's all there. They love the monkey. They love the monkey. The monkey is respected and worshipped in Japan.
Because it came before them.
You know, the same way some of the ancient Egyptians reverenced the baboon for Tahuti. So
What was
it
the
goes.
connection for that?
Say again.
What was the connection with the Tahuti and the baboon thing? I've always wondered that.
Because that was when because the baboon is symbolic of the races that we mentioned here that evolved
Ah,
the man, and so the moon is over that. When you get into the sect of races, the nature books tell you the races. I can't recall it now, but the sun had a certain amount of races it controlled. The moon had a certain amount of races it controlled, and then I think the earth had a certain amount. And so the moon, that's why you got the word Mongolian. He tells you in the nature books is really Mongolian. It's the same.
okay.
And so when you start like he said, he words things a certain kind of way. Like here, when you see him make words in all capital letters, you have to
Yes.
start looking. That's how I found the whole Adam and Eve thing distorted on what they used to make Adam and Eve them have sex. That the Bible likely jumps over. And I found in the nature books he tells us, you know, these was like a Spanish fly. So I knew I was looking for herbs and things like that. And so the more I kept looking into Mongolian, and I said, okay, well, Mongolia is a place. And then I just kept going and going and going until it took me right into Tibet. And the Tibet monks was doing all this the same time the nature books reference, which is 6,000 years ago. And at the same time, you had what was going on with Veda Vyasa and the Hindus getting into a war with the Caucasians called Pandu. So it's a lot of these things you have to tie them together. And man, we did so much different reading, and then we don't discriminate either. That's another problem that a lot of these so-called black self-taught scholars have. They're so racist, one-sided racist,
You're right. You're totally right, sibling.
right, and radical that they like. And I give you a good example. When Seti and Ankhnam and Amar Scott was having that pre-debate on was the Meta Netta deciphered, one of the things that Seti kept yelling was that Sean Paulion was gay. And I'm like, okay, being gay, how does that deal with him deciphering something correctly or incorrectly? And he just kept saying that, yeah, this dude was a gay. He was this. It was like, just if you're dealing with academia, you prove that the person is wrong because they lack the necessary education or the skills. You can't say, oh, because you're gay, you can't decipher something. That makes no sense. And so a lot of the so-called content community is riddled with that type of foolishness. The hate and anger is so great that sometimes they just go back into this state and they start name calling, and you don't have to do that. If you studied enough, you should be able to debunk what, and that's what the name of the game is. This is debunking. And that was one of the things I just kept remembering that he kept saying over and over, and talked about other people that decipher, and they kept saying that the information, the glyphs, metaneta hadn't been deciphered, but the problem when they was making a mistake was the metaneta has been deciphered. And like Ankhnam was saying, if the metaneta hasn't been deciphered, I know you remember that debate, Noble,
Yeah.
they supposed to have. He said, well, how is it that you got the name Sarah Seti? If it ain't been debated, then why is you still carrying the name? That's what I'm saying. Like, logically, he couldn't answer that.
Yeah.
Because if you really believe that, you're gonna have to go back into whatever your name was, or create your own name from the glyphs you do understand or trust has been deciphered. But it's not that they haven't been deciphered, it's the understanding of them. Because looking into the metaneta like me and A-Noot was doing, those glyphs are multi-layered and they serve more than one purpose. So you can't even look at it and say, okay, like the alphabet in English, you only can say you can have the A long sound and the short sound. You can't say A representing nothing else unless you go into some other place, like some type of secret society, or they turn
Yeah.
it into a code. But if you leave it as the language A to Z, you can't do nothing with what the language says. Same thing with the numbers. You only can do what it says it was created for. But you can't do that with the glyphs. You can't do that.
Oh,
And that's what sound right reason comes in, that helps us understand the multi-usage of that. Go ahead. You wanted to say something?
I was just going to say, isn't Hebrew the same thing with the numbers that it's attached to and all that, and it has a
Yeah, what Hebrew, like they saying, is like Yiddish and some other stuff, but the real language that they talking about, Aramaic, is really Phoenician. And you could compare both of those languages. You can see that Aramaic, not Hebrew. Aramaic it comes from Phoenician, but all of them languages came from the Metanetta. And again, this is just what was written down, because language is new.
Mhm.
That's not something that was written. That's why when you go back and you see a lot of people now on the planet, they don't have their language is not written down. So the Metanetta was a combination that, my understanding of reading, was a couple of African tribes that had came together and put it all together. That's why the Metanetta is so usable back then and right now, because we gave the whole world mathematics and language, or at least the Metanetta and the pyramid, which Afunu said that the pyramid itself is what gave birth to what we call the number system in America right now, 0 to 9 and 1 to 9. That
Pyram-
came from just the building of the pyramids, and that's called the pyramid alphabet in the nature book, just because of the way that by angles, it's the angle bet is what he called it.
Ah,
So it's angles, because when you say alpha, that's taking you right back to what? Greeks.
Grecian. Mm-hmm.
Right, alpha, beta, so it's not that, it's angles, because that's what it is. When you write numbers, that's angles. But the like Anu said, the spell makes us overlook that. You can't write or draw anything without it being classified. That's an angle or a shape. But we'll look at it and say, oh no, that's just numbers. We'll totally tune out the reality because we were not taught certain things. But that was what I wanted to show you on that. Let me jump back to the
That's as we highlighted in part one. This
right.
is all part of the fooling system, and the way that they train young people, which then become adults, to think a certain way and not to question certain information. If you bring some of this information out to somebody, they'll look at you with a glazed look in their eye and say that you're crazy.
Mm-hmm. Well, we here to make sure it's known. Hold on, let me put this here. All right, let me share that. All right, so now, this is very important. All right. However, original Christianity did start with the Osiris and Set legend, which is based on the true story about Abel and Cain. All right, so he's talking about the Osiris and Set legend is based on a true story about them. Christianity before that, based on Jesus 2,000 years ago, broke out around 560 or 600 BC. So Afro is giving you a time zone when they start talking about Christianity. And if you go back to about 500, 600 BC, that's going to put you in the Phoenician rulership or the invaders of Kemet, which would be Thutmose and all the people that came in after the 6th dynasty was mostly Phoenicians. Them the ones who came, they were black with straight hair. They were not African. They were black. But that's why you have to make the distinction when you start talking about Kemet and the dynasties, because people will just be like, they'll see pictures of say Thutmose or Amos, and just because the statue is jet black, they would think that's African. No, they're African by location, but not nationality or nothing like that, or by race, which A-Noot said that the hair is the connection.
So, Sibling, let's get into that before you continue. Race Race, if we look at and we just look at spells and stuff, race is a competition where there's a start and a finish. So how are we applying that term to people and saying my race is this and your race is that? Wouldn't the term maybe tribe or something else be more befitting to describe people versus race?
I think that
The sport came after the name though. The sport racing, right, came after. It's just, it's word semantics because it's English, it's the English language as well.
Mm-hmm.
The correct term should be nationality, because your nationality represents your race. That's your lineage and where you come from. But they've changed nationality to countries, right? When in retrospect, that countries are, like I told you before, just business organizations. But your nationality is the landmass of which you come from. And not your landmass, sorry, it's the group of people that you come from. Because if you look up the etymology of nationality, it says belonging to a race of people or a group of individuals, rather. All right. So in one aspect, yes, race does represent, start to finish. And that's just the semantics that the Caucasian plays as well, because he cheats in the race. He puts all he puts all kind of obstacles in our way in order for us to lose the race, right?
Mm-hmm.
The race of the races. So yeah, you're absolutely right. But the correct term should be nationality. But because we've been so deeply woven into this spell,
yeah.
If somebody says nationality, oh, I'm proud African American. No, you're not.
No.
Or I'm a proud Englishman. No, you're not. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, you're proud to the corporation that owns you, but as far as race is concerned, no. And that's what we have to get back to, is to putting things into proper context so that people can understand exactly where it is they come from. That's why every time you hear us speak on a particular subject, it's never a quick answer. Our answers go 5-10 minutes.
Yeah. You got to be crystal clear with the verbiage, because as we're highlighting with this language, which is very widely spoken, English, race is, it denotes multiple different things, and without the proper context and without really putting the detail into it, people can be left with a total different understanding rather than inner understanding and equal standing of what the true indeed facts are.
Well, I got a better way to address that, because I was just talking about this. I got a different perspective. I put it like that. Y'all can see the screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, now this comes out of book 2 of the Nature of Nature. And these are the races, right? Our race came in here 18 million years ago, but prior to that, we still had our other family here, which is go 36 million years prior to us. So all of them came together and gave birth to the Ethiopian race. All right. So when you look at race, you're talking about let's explore that, as Kamala Harris says. I think I may vote for her just because I want to be a Negro. No, I'm just playing. But when we talk about race, is like you said, it is in the form of movement. It is, let's look at it instead of a competition. Let's just look at it in a form of the order of things and the way persons, places, and things come up into play in the way that it goes. You had the universe, you had the creation and growing. In Noon, we create means to grow. So it's not a poof. None of that is in Noon. Everything starts from one point and it revolves into whatever it's supposed to be eventually. So you get the universes, the galaxy, the solar system, all that gets set up. The planet gets set up. Boom. That's the foundation. Everything is put together on the planet. The moon moon is brought forth. All these things are put into play. Then the first race comes on the planet, which is the hydropigment. They first, the geopigment second, aeropigment is third, like that. Even though they are first, the hydropigment doesn't end up here because they're first. So they still be in the same position of first, no matter what other races came in after, right? And they ended with the vacopigment being the ninth race. So all of them travel together because the leader is hydro, but the most powerful out of all of them is the vacopigment. But it's still, this is what we need to be using too. People need to add the word rank when you're dealing with race, because in America, one of the tricks that they play with equality is to make sure everything's equal and don't worry about sex and gender and all of that. And when I did some research, I found out that the Rockefellers, I think, Rockefellers or Rothschilds had got control of the American school system in 1903, and they the ones
Rothschilds.
Huh?
The Rothschilds.
Okay, the Rothschilds, and they're the ones who said they didn't want nothing taught in the school system to differentiate between race and gender and all of that. When you do that,
Wasn't it? Whoa! Wasn't it the Rockefeller sibling?
You sure?
The Rockefeller Foundation. I'm sure it was them.
Oh.
One of the R's. One of the R's at least.
Yep. That's what you call social construct.
Right. Yeah. Just give me 1 second. Let me try to pull it up real quick, just so we can be correct. Cause I know it's one of the two. Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think y'all are right. Yeah, the General Education Board. They grabbed that in 1903. The Rockefeller.
Oh, the Rockefeller. Okay, so you are right, Noble. It's the Rockefellers.
No problem.
Right, it's the Rockefellers, and they the ones who started that initiative on public education and they said the racial divide. So they said the first project undertaken by the GEB sent agents across South to survey and report on conditions in black and white schools. Agent W.T.B. Williams wrote exceeding honor narratives of the conditions he encountered. So from this person is how they started creating this division. But from there is where it comes from. So now once you start, and that's what they do now. When you fill out an application in America, I don't know how that is over there with you, Noble, but they'll tell you, it's equal opportunity. It doesn't matter about race or identity.
Yeah.
All of
shit.
that.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying? once you throw rank away in the order of things, see, that's the thing about Noon. Noon deals with origins. And origins have to have rank in it, because if you don't know the origin and the rank of a person placing the thing, then anything can be told to you. So when you get to over here, you see that the Ethiopian African black race with kinky hair is first. Then the Phoenician race, and then these two mix together, not all, and then we call the Mingalese. Mingalese means to mingle.
Hey, sibling. So
popped up on the scene.
Sibling, I meant to ask you this on the first build. You mentioned the Ethiopian race. Does that encompass, for instance, the Eritreans and the Nubians? Let's go back to the old names. The Nubians. Was Nubia part of this Ethiopian race?
Yeah, anybody that had kinky hair would be considered Ethiopian. And the Eritreans, are you talking about the race that Nipsey Hussle was from?
Yes.
No, they mix with us, but they're not originally us, because their hair is coarse.
Loose curls. They got loose curl hair kind of in it. It's not
correct.
Kinky. Haile Selassie is not African.
Yeah. I know you're saying.
But a lot of them keep believing he's a savior of black people. No, he was from his own.
Ja! Rastafari.
You don't know the things, sibling.
I'm just saying, like, it's just, we dealing with scientific facts. That's why religion, you won't find science welcome like that, because science deals with knowing. And to know something and it to be true, it has to be factual. So we're being phenotypically factual, that our information and race are different than every other non-kinky hair race on the planet. And that's a problem.
So, sibling, let me add on to that. So, or ask a question relating to that. So, Ethiopian race, would that denote the landmass, the continent would be referred to as Ethiopia or versus Africa after
It'd be
general
Africa too.
Africanus?
It'd be Africa and I think what was the Pacific or the which one? It was the Pacific A-Noot that was called Ethiopian Ocean.
Was it the Pacific? I can't remember right now.
I think if you're looking at the map, it was to the left. That's the Pacific, or is that Atlantic?
Atlantic.
Atlantic.
Atlantic,
So
Atlantic.
yeah,
If it's to the
Atlantic,
left.
yeah. It was called Ethiopia with an A. The Ethiopian from the Greeks used to call it that.
So was this the time when some of the maps, because obviously there's a load of maps and lots of map makers, you know, in those early times, because there's maps that you've got it called that, and then the lower part of or middle Ethiopia was called Negro. Was it Negro? Was it Negro Land? Or was that later on?
I've never heard of that one.
You ain't seen that? Okay, I'll shoot you the link. There's half Ethiopia, as you call it, was called Negro Land at one point, or the Negro Land / the Dark Lands.
You can send me that. You can send me that.
I'll send you that.
That's the first time I heard that. But even with the word, you know, with the Greeks, and when they wrote about us, they wrote about what they heard from the Phoenicians and whatever writings that those philosophers got.
Mm-hmm.
Our glory was gone by the time the Caucasian entered into Egypt under Alexander to take over in 333 BC. Our glory was out. And so when they wrote about us, you know, that was, it appeared mythical, because when they looked in Africa, they seen all of what we left behind, but they're like, these people did all of this? You gotta be kidding. And so that's how long we've been on the planet though. You understand? So let me jump back to the point that I'm talking about. Now we talking about race, right? And let's put this to a vehicle, right? A vehicle needs what to run?
It needs energy, and that energy would be by the means of combustion engine, would be, quote, what they say is dead plant matter and animal matter in the form of petrol.
Right, petrol, right? Which is gas. When it comes to the human being, what helps the human being run?
Oxygen, right?
Not that's what helps us live, but what helps us run? What helps us live? Where's life?
Substance.
The blood.
There you go.
Oh, okay, we're going
blood
there. Okay.
Is what a part of that. So when you put that there, you can take the word race and put blood there. The Ethiopian blood, because we the oldest race on the planet. That means our blood has everything in it to run. The race word is correct, because we're the ones that been going the longest around the whole circle. And that's what people don't understand. In the nature books and the BIA tell you that the black race got the best blood. O positive is the original blood on the planet.
O negative.
O negative, I'm sorry. So these things is very important when you're dealing with the circle and the SMAT and counterclockwise, all these different things that we're doing. That part of it is very important. Our blood, and this is another reason why when it comes out with all this child sacrificing and murdering and killing people, they're gonna tell the world that black people was being sacrificed the most. And it's more of us on the planet than anybody.
Statistically, the statistics back it up. The statistics back up exactly what you're talking about in regards to the people who go missing, these kidnapped people, this trafficking, the women, especially yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying, man.
Yeah, what we waiting on is to release the footage, because according to them, QAnon is going to do a worldwide web blackout and then bring it back online, and everything that's been going on is going to be made known through the media and through the YouTube. I mean, through the the internet, and people are going to see everything raw.
You talking about that stuff that was on Anthony Weiner's laptop?
Yeah, that and worse.
Yeah.
Because and once that occurs, the question have to be then. That's when the conversation comes. Now we can get back to what I was saying earlier before we started. See, Noon helps us deal with. It helps us recreate that which was and still is, but under a different name. And the Nodiac that A-Noot has behind him is a prime example of Noon helping us create, right? So with religion, it doesn't teach them how to recreate something from the past because they don't have any scientific evidence that will back them. This is why belief was so strong in the past couple of 100 years, or even when from the Roman Catholic Church, and they just went out and they conquered people and gave them religion. But if you had the facts, if I can prove to you that my race was first, that we gave mathematics and all this stuff to the planet, medical, all that good stuff, then I would need to do what they did to us to make us believe that they were something that they were not.
It'd be all about the facts would be more than enough, and it would have already been. It would have been legend. It would have been a case of look what those guys over there are doing.
Right, and so that's why they went so hard in defacing Kemet, especially because that's where all the information was just stored at. But Nubia would be the head spot, or Sudan would be the head spot where everything started from the area and spread out down the Nile. But Egypt or Kemet was just where all of the information was stored at. And that was done by negative side of nature. So when other races came in, they just came in and took over once we fell down. And it was meant for us to fade in the background. But religion doesn't give them the tools to give you correct information. And that's the power of why Caucasians been ruling the way they have. And the Caucasians who are positive, they're the ones who have to be taught that. The evil ones who run the world, they already know because they once Alexander went in there and got all the information and wherever else they had mystery school set up at, they obtained that information and then plotted against that based upon the things that they knew and whatever the spirit gods and goddesses were giving them visions of the future, that's how they done that. But the regular Caucasians who are not aware or privy to that, they have to be taught the facts about what's been hidden from them because they've been given a false pride. Like A-Noot said, when you start talking about a country has replaced their nationality. Before it was a country, they used religion. And some people still do that to the night. You ask them, what are you? Oh, I'm a Christian. That's not defining who you are. But people believe that. They say that with America, this is a Christian nation. If that's the case, why do y'all got 1,000 different religions in here? It's not a Christian country. That's a lie. It's a gumbo soup. On top of it being stolen property with stolen people on it. And if people knew what other races contributed to the planet, especially to America, they would have a different type of response to us. There's no respect for the black race because they made sure the evil people covered up what we accomplished. Even up to when we got out of so-called slavery, A-Noot was on there. I think he put that on the Nodiac about Inventors Day. Wasn't that in A-Noot?
Mm-hmm.
About inventions. So on the Nodiac, it has that celebrating a lot of our people that invented things. Even after we got out of physical bondage, we invented so much stuff even during slavery. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of stuff we invented after that. The stoplight, the washing machines, all kind of stuff we done. But the world,
lock, refrigeration.
Mm-hmm. So when you keep making the public see a negative side of us, it reinforces the belief that nothing good came from our race. But the truth is, if you took let's go back to sports. Who was in sports? That was black. That changed baseball.
Was it
Jackie Robinson?
Okay, Jackie Robinson.
Yeah.
Right. If you go back to all original sports, especially in the black and white days, and took out the pioneers and look at their sports before we got into it, it was dull. Just us being in there brought energy, brought life. That's what blood is. Because swinging a bat takes muscle, it takes flesh, it takes blood, it takes life. Bouncing a basketball. Before we got into basketball, it was nothing. When we got into everything, it changed. It brought color. It brought life. It changed all of that. If we was to go back to Africa right now and take everything we brought, they would have nothing. That's a fact. So once the true facts come out about what we've contributed to the planet, which was life, and that their race contributed to death, because it's amazing how they sit here and say, well, white people had this great fear of black people, but I'm afraid that I might get robbed when I walk down the street. Y'all robbed the whole continent. I'm afraid that, the black man gonna shoot me. Y'all who created guns.
You know what it is? You know what it is?
Einstein was a killer. What he created? Einstein. Y'all created the atom bomb. What is you talking about? The hydrogen bomb. We didn't do that. How you afraid of somebody who can take a gun and shoot a couple of people?
Tesla was the one that did that.
Tesla? On the hydrogen bomb?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my bad. Well, still, he was white.
He didn't want it. He didn't want it to come out, but they stole his research and stuff.
Yeah, they stole his research.
Was that when
people
Prescott
from
Bush? Prescott Bush and them took his stuff, right?
I know it was the dude that started Chase Bank.
It was Thomas Edison.
Yeah, Edison, all of them worked to get him and the government. Yeah, they used him because his pockets wasn't right. And they was bankrolling him until he put all his information out. And once they got tired of him and he didn't want to play ball, they got rid of him and claimed his stuff and kept some of it on the low and spread it out, whatever. I know Elon Musk and them got a hold of some of that. They claim Trump got some of it too because his uncle worked with him and he showed him a lot of stuff. So again, it's not demonizing the positive Caucasian, but when you look at the rulership, that's what we're talking about. The ruling elite and what's coming out. They all, regardless of Caucasians who was not a part of that. If you look back in the 50s and the 60s, the little white picket fence and the mailman coming and dropping milk off and they having a little fun and stuff, they benefited from what the evil people was doing because they fueled their rulership through sacrifice. And what people are going to be sick to their stomach is, not only did y'all rob and kill black people and took their knowledge and used it for y'all still was killing black people and using them to sacrifice them to your spirit gods to continue them giving you gifts and knowledge and secret hidden information, which we had already brought forth. That's the big thing I'm waiting on. Because then they're going to realize that y'all have been told the greatest lie of all. And that the point is you couldn't do nothing without us. That's a fact. But go ahead, A-Noot. Well, if you got any questions, Noble.
Yeah, I think you're right in what you said, and I think what it is because they personally aren't part of that elite status that, in their day-to-day life, they're not necessarily trying to, harm original folk or any other nation and that kind of stuff. But a good point that you brought up was back then, I had this conversation with someone, a few days back. Let's just say, back in when our foreparents were prisoners of war and stuff, and we had like convenience stores, we had, the blacksmith, you had all of these little industries who would, in essence, be supporting the slave owners, wouldn't they? When the slave owners needed their grain, they'd go to the store, and that store wasn't necessarily the slave master's store. That was just some good Caucasian folk who had a store, but profited by selling these goods and services to these wicked, evil people. So I don't think there's anybody who can show and prove that their foreparents did not capitalize and benefit off the backs of original people in that situation. Nobody can.
And the thing is, the nature books, all the way from the Bible interpretation on forward, it teaches us, and by living long enough and doing research, that all the races on the planet Earth are enemies to the Ethiopian race. The Caucasian is being the extreme. The little diagram I showed you from the Ethiopian race all the way down to the Caucasian being the last race. Let me see real quick. Starting from Ethiopian, when the Phoenician race came on, they became opposite to us. Then the next race came on, became opposite. And the next race, and the next race. By the time you get to the Caucasian, you see what it says down here? It says what? The perfection of negativity. And we talk about energies that's coming forth from the sun and the moon and the earth as well. And the earth, all this stuff was affecting everything around us, the air, the water, the spirits, all of that. So when you get to the Caucasian race down here, they have become the most extreme against other races, but mostly against us, the black race, because we are black, we represent black, and they represent white, and they opposite. So they always did things toward us because of that, because we're different and we're opposites by nature. No different if you put a dog and a cat around each other, the dog is going to chase. You know, it's just natural. That's what it is. And so we have to stop that. Let's be friends. We done tried all of that, and nature always wins through every time. Right now, a lot of them they still screaming equality. That does not exist. Because if you look at where we came from, right, which is let me pull this up real quick. I'm gonna show you something. Hold up.
I noticed why you bring that up. In one of the I think it was in the last book that you brought up. You mentioned the American Indians mixing with the Mongolians. Now, as far as I'm aware of, you had obviously I won't go into all since the different various Iroquois tribes and all that kind of stuff. But as far as I'm aware of, and based upon the diaries of Christopher Cologne and all the rest of those wicked beings, there was the original people. Those are copper-colored races of the Americas, aka original folk. And then via the Barren Straits, you had the Mongolians who went over and walked across, and then started to inhabit North America, then Central America, and then they took over that identity. And then those original copper-colored races were then brought under that Negro-colored status business, and then the lie was perpetuated.
Yeah, you can look up some Indians that's over here, and you can see Chinese people in them. The Mongols. If you look at some of the so-called Native Americans, I've seen them. They look like they got some Chinese or whatever in them. Because Mongolian, China, that's all the same people. Japanese, they all fall under that term Mongolian.
The Huns, right?
Huns, all of them. And that's the problem, because like A-Noot was saying, these names is corporate names. The people, if you went to those lands, a lot of them don't even use that to name themselves that. So that's what I'm saying. But like right here, right? If we, like A-Noot had made this known. Hold on, let me go back. You got all of this right here. Africa, that's Africa. Saudi and Asia, all this stuff is connected. All that is ours. The Caucasian, they was up here when you talk about the what is that? The Asian islands and all of that, because it was like, matter of fact, let me go a little bit. I think ain't it somewhere in here, Newt?
Yep.
All right, so they was like 700 miles away from Africa. This is where the Caucasian come from. With these it was some islands in here. So if we was born just in a day and time, if you just go off the map, just off of this, and all of this is ours. They was born on some islands. How the hell are we equal just off of the birthplace? Even if you bring Brazil and connect it right back in that piece right there, all of that. The point is, it's no such thing as equality in the way that they're trying to do it here. After years and years and years of false, number one, it's not going to work because by nature we're not equal. That's why it won't work, because what's in black people, it takes more things to keep us going as a race as long as we've been here. We need all this stuff. It ain't just because the continent is big, it's because the sun, the nutrients, the plants, all that stuff is the reason why we had all this land mass. The Caucasian already was denatured when they came about, and they was albino. They had no melanin, so basically the sun, vitamin D wasn't no friend of yours. So that's a problem, right? Their diets was small. These islands don't have all this stuff that Africa got in Indian places, so they didn't need much when they came in. They was basically born with nothing. When you get into the white albino Aryans, when you go into that history and look into that. So when you start going into these things, you start looking at equality. No, America is no such thing, because number one, by nature and by historical evidence, y'all are not from over here. This is not theirs.
Remember, they came over as criminals, convicts, serfs, and orphans.
They was convicts and criminals when they came over. Where is that? Where is that?
And Australia, a bit down, is it? Down?
No, Europe. Where the hell Europe at?
Right here, right there, man.
Mm-hmm.
All that there. Italy, France, Germany, all that's Europe.
Aegean Islands.
Okay, Frank, there you go. So this wasn't theirs either. They came from the waters and went up into Europe for a minute. Then they spread out and hit here, and eventually came over in here. So that's the point. So by nature, remember, what goes around comes around, and how you start is how you gonna end. You got to go back to where you came. So this is not theirs, and that's what we mean by false information, false pride, false education. Because they still haven't accepted a lot of information. It's not been allowed to even educate them. Because again, your boy Christopher thought he was lost. He was lost. He thought he was in India.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what are you talking about? So all that stuff had to be dealt with before it could be. Well, everything had to go back to where its original was, and nature books tell you that. That's why the cataclysm that's scheduled to come between 2022 and a few, give or take a few years, is going to come in and reset the whole universes. But on planet Earth, everything that's not supposed to have been the way it was must be returned or destroyed. And they're going to start over again. Because go ahead.
So, Sibley, what's your thoughts on the ADOS and that chain of thought in regards to them always being original and always being there and not necessarily being from the continent of Africa?
I mean, again, when you're dealing with as Noone, they have to prove that. Number one, you can't say you was always here, because Africa is the birthplace. So then we used to have this conversation, Noone A-Noot, with some of the people that's doing the Aboriginal Indian thing, the Native American thing, or we the real American Indians.
We did that.
Everything
out of when we did the debunk, the Out of America debunk.
Yeah, we did that. Me and A-Noot addressed that whole movement, because the point thing is this: everything has a starting point, right? And that starting point will be considered one. and we proved by using Noon that the black race came out of the Lake Victoria from around the brain of the planet Earth.
In that South Africa, Lake Victoria.
Not Central.
Central Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we
About,
proved that. Go ahead.
About Eastern Central Africa.
Well, what state is it in, or country, I should say?
It's about 3 countries bordering it. I think Kenya, Uganda.
Okay.
Tanzania.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's around that area.
So we already, and A-Noot did a wonderful job as far as scientifically backing up what Afro Unu said. See, Afro Unu could have easily put it in there and told us how he got that. But the joy and the just looking is what he wanted us to experience with 9 Mind to be able to find it. So A-Noot found a whole hunk of stuff, and then I found a whole nother hunk of stuff, and then we put it together in the video, which I'll make sure you get those videos too. It's debunking the out of America theory. It's like 4 videos, long as hell, like 2 hours a piece.
Yeah.
That's how much information that we had to gather to do these videos. So we told them that each belief of each race tell you that they came out of the ground. Even in non-religious places, even certain Native American stories, they tell you they came from the ground, they came from a turtle, something connected with the ground. But in order for you to come from the earth, there has to be certain plumes underneath the continent where you at. And then it had to be, temperature got to be right, got to be certain bacteria. A-Noot did his thing when it came to that. And Africa's the only place that can provide that. That's it. America does not have that. And they keep spreading that lie that the Nile, that really is the Nile, is the Mississippi.
Mississippi. Yeah. I heard that.
How you going to use the name? Mississippi was never originally called the Nile. They cannot produce no evidence of that. And that's because they've been tricked too. The same way the Nation of Islam was infiltrated with the Japanese radicals, communism, and the 5% was a part of that. All that stuff they was infiltrated with. So
their biggest claim to fame is the pyramids being older than the ones in Africa.
Right.
But even with that being said, that doesn't mean that this is where you're from. Because Afro Unu in the books made it clear that our ancestors who created us, right? Because we are a sub-race of that original race of beings. Mm-hmm. And they were all over the globe. So our parents or our ancestors who created us might have been in America already, and they just created us in America. Mm-hmm. They might have been in Europe and just created us in Europe. The majority of them being in Africa created us in Africa. But when we go to the whole lineage of where that entire humanity comes from, is in Lake Victoria in Africa, because the mantle plume, which is basically a on a biological scale, would be the vagina of the planet. Now, on a planetary scale, this planet has 2 vaginas, right? I know it sounds weird, but this planet, it's all right. So let me not use vagina. Let me use birth canal.
Yeah.
All right. So there's 2 birth canals on the planet. There's one, like I told you before, which is the Mariana Trench. And if you look up the Mariana Trench, that's the deepest part of the ocean on the planet. It's the deepest trench in the planet, which means it goes all the way down to the center of the planet. The mantle plume under the Lake Victoria eventually closed up, but it's gonna open up again, and that's where our ancestors came out of. Because you have these, they don't, the funny thing about Noon is it teaches you to go inward, not outward. right? Everything is inward. And then you can branch out and make synopsis about other things that's taking place. That's why when you see this map behind me, right, with the organs and things like that, where are the organs? The inside.
Inside.
You understand what I'm saying? So everything inward is outward.
So based upon what you've just said, I would take that what you're saying is our foreparents, ancestors came via the means of water and then evolved into a non-water based life form. Is that what you're basically saying?
All right. So they came in the form, when we say liquid, they came in the plasma, in the 9 ether plasma. That's how rivers are formed. They streams of water or streams of plasma. That's
Which is
how.
information.
Huh?
Which is information, yes?
Correct. So they came up from under the planet from the plasma, because there's water in the planet, but it's in the form of diamonds. It's like special kind of diamonds. I forgot the name of it. And it crystallized itself, and inside of the crystals there's water, right? So when Afro-Unu speaks about water being inside of the sun, water being inside of the planet, it's in a different form, not the form that we may know it as, right? So our ancestors definitely were born from the waters of the Nile when they were in fire form, right? So they were born in fire, right? As time went on and radiation, which is 6 ether energy, I'm going into another aspect of things. It's called, this particular radiation that caused our ancestors to lose their powers is called the Cambrian explosion.
When you say powers, what are you talking about?
All right. So based upon the fact that they were born into fire, and they were able to do, they were able to ray beam themselves, meaning
ray beam.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically they knew how they could manipulate their molecular structure the same way how the Caucasian puts it in these fantastic cartoons and things like that. It's actually based on reality of our ancestors. Our ancestors were able to manipulate their
transfiguration kind of thing.
Correct. They were able to do that because the atmosphere was hot enough and dense enough for them to do that. Plus, they had the help of gases around them in order to do it, right? The gases are, what we would call spirit beings. They had the help of these complex polyatomic structures, because that's what a spirit being is. A spirit is a polyatomic structure that can invade the body through the ligand channels on the skin or any opening in the body. All right. So that's how see, you're going to make me go into everything today. That's how the process of incarnation takes place. Scientifically, in their science, the process of incarnation is called the ligand. It's called the ligand. Forgot the name of it. But basically, there's structures on the body that have specific locks for keys to connect to that individual. So for instance, let's say for your entire life, you are destined to be Jesus, right? I'm just using any type of term out there, right? The specific genetic structure on the ligand channel, that's what it's called, ligand ion gated channels, LIGC, ligand ion gated channels, right? So there's specific locks, right? On your skin, on your in your nose, in certain parts of your body where gases, which are called ligands, they change these names miraculously, right? So these gases specifically lock on to the ligand, and then they start to multiply and they go inside the body, but not any gas can connect to it, right? So you're born genetically with these particular keys, locks. And then the key comes to unlock it. So no gas can just come and unlock it. So if I'm born to be Jesus, right? At a specific point in time through neurogenesis, that gas comes, these polyatomic particles comes and it locks on to the ligand ion gated channels. And then it makes physical connection with the person. And that's why the person might have dreams about, what it is that they're doing or what they're supposed to do, right? And throughout their whole body, now the spirit starts to come inside their head and throughout their whole nervous system. So now you and that person, you and that spirit is one.
That sounds, what you're describing sounds familiar, and I'll relay it, and you can tell me if I'm correct or not. That experience was described not in that detail, but from what the person has said, this is what it sounds like they've went through. David Icke, as you call him, in America, David Icke. Would that be the same kind of experience that he says that he had in the early 90s when he went up and had that little retreat thing?
Oh, you talking about he took that
ayahuasca
plant? No,
it can be, but it happens at different points, and the only way it can happen is through two processes: one, neurogenesis, and two, the ligand ion gated channels, right? So ions are basically the type of spirit that a person is going to have. So you got cations and you have anions. So sometimes you have polyatomic anions and you got polyatomic cations, right? And these particular ions can, and the ayahuasca that he took could have gave his body the genetic structure to attract a cation or an anion. That's why it's important with the foods we eat, certain chemicals that we're taking in our body in order to attract a particular cation or anion. In spirituality or mythology, it's called agatho demon and cackle demon. The cackle demon being the evil one and the agatho demon being the good one. But they changed the names in the scientific structure because science is spirituality, right? So because science is spirituality, you can see the connection between the two: agatho demon, anion, cackle demon, cation. You understand? So they still use some of the same prefixes in order to, describe what's going on. But then when you have a metaphysician such as myself and other folks, you can see the connection between the two. So when I was doing the research on incarnation or reincarnation, right? The process of reincarnation is done through the ligand ion gated channels, right? Where there's specific keys on your skin. So once a spirit makes contact with the person and it has that specific key, the person has no other choice but to take it on. You understand? So that's how the process of incarnation takes place. But then when you talk to a person who doesn't understand scientifically what it is and to make that connection, they're going to be like, well, that's bogus. Ain't no such thing as reincarnation and incarnation. But I just told you, scientifically, that's how it happened. But they're not going to reveal that information to us. It's up to us to put that information together in order for us to make sense of it. Because ions are spirits.
So
that's what they are, polyatomic spirits or molecules.
So are there these spirits that are just literally roaming around?
Yes.
Looking for one specific they've got one person to go for, or have they've got, say, out of the 7.5 billion people allegedly that's on this earth, they've got, say, 10 people that they can go after, or is it one spirit, one body?
All right. Let me explain to you how this happens. When a person dies, it goes into the spirit atmosphere, which is our atmosphere. There's the oh my goodness. there's so much information that I'll be forgetting these names. So you got like you got the troposphere, you got all these different layers.
Hemisphere,
right?
troposphere, stratosphere.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
the in between those zones is the spirit zone. So the whole planet encompasses these spirits, right? So the atmosphere of our planet houses the spirits, right? So our atmosphere is the spirit world,
Okay.
right? So when a person dies, his spirit goes up into the atmosphere. That's heaven. It goes into the atmosphere. In older texts, heaven is space.
Yeah.
I'm saying is space. But in a Christian aspect, going up would mean go to the atmosphere. That's the clouds that they talk about when you die and you go to the gates of heaven. It's the clouds, right? So I'm making sense of their Christianity in a scientific aspect.
Throw in there that's part of the planet's Ligon gates.
Correct.
That's the same thing.
The gates of heaven. So you go up into the atmosphere, right? Now, like you were just saying, well, how does the spirit know who to contact? Now, because they're in the atmosphere, right? They can wait until a specific person is born, such as Afro-Unu. Let's just use him for example. Because of his blood lineage, right? Because your blood has what? Electromagnetic energy, right? Spirits are ions, right? Either cations or anions. A cation is a negative spirit that has a negative charge. Sorry, that has a positive charge. A positive spirit is an anion that has a negative charge. So because of his blood and his lineage of where he come from and the charge of his blood, he's able to pull from the atmosphere, not him, but the spirit is able to pull from the atmosphere and incarnate into him, right? So at birth, he had that spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And at around 36 years old, when they made themselves known to him, he had another experience, whether it be another spirit that switched out the first spirit that was there or added on to the spirit that he had. Remember, I told you that photons are what? Units of information. So when the planets lined up on February 5th, between February 4th and February 5th, 1962, those photons from the planets and also the sun itself channeled itself towards him and gave him the information and knowledge to understand what it was that he was already seeking. So he was already into whatever he was into, information, because in 1953, he put in the nature books, he said that he used to question, why would there be a college on a Catholic campus called the Ethiopian College, which meant that they used to take information from the African, right? And they named it the Ethiopian College, right? So he was always inquisitive. Mm-hmm. But the neurons in your brain already knows that, because the neurons are just the bodies for the spirit. That's why, like certain hormones, like dopamine and things like that, those are just like arms of the spirit, right? And what I mean by arms of the spirit, arms and legs of the spirit, for instance, a person who's very angry and upset all the time will always have a lot of cortisol, which is like a stress hormone, an anger hormone, and things like that, right? That's like a person's strong arm, right? So these are just the arms and legs of the polyatomic anion or cation, which is a representation of what your spirit is. So anytime somebody asks you what a spirit is, you just tell them that it's a complex structure or molecule that's either cation or anion, right? So that's how we are able to scientifically address the fact of what spirits are. How does incarnation take place? Where the spirit's world is, and these things. All right. So that's why I told you in the Christian context, right? They not wrong, but they also not right because they altered the information. Yeah, you do go up into heaven. Heaven being the spirit world, you know?
Right.
And the fallen angels, the ones fallen from heaven, which is the spirit beings. Spirits fall from heaven and descend into the human being.
So how many of these spirits can potentially inhabit a body?
A lot. A lot. You can have multiple spirits inside of a person. Jesus had 2 spirits inside of him, but the dominant one was the moon. He had a sun spirit and he had a moon spirit. The guy that they call Jesus, Esau Panthera, he had 2. But the dominant spirit was the moon, and he himself was an earth spirit. Well, it was an earth god. So he had multiple things going on. He might have been called crazy back then.
Well, I think they did call him crazy and all kind of stuff.
They probably did.
I mean, you're off referring to
Esau Panthera.
Okay, Esau Panthera, which is the biblical
Ptolemy,
Yeshua,
which is Ptolemy as well. Ptolemy the 15th, Philadelphus. All of these things people could go back and research. They could just cross-reference for themselves. But he was born of Cleopatra and another man named Mark Antony. There wasn't no Holy Ghost, wasn't no Mary, or none of that stuff. Mary the Virgin is really, if you look up the ancient context of the word virgin, it just means an unwed woman. And she was
oh yes, I know that. Yeah.
Cleopatra was not she was not married. She was having a relationship with a man by the name Mark Antony, and they ended up having about 3 kids, I think. And one of those kids was well, there you go. See, Taah Nuun put it up. Ptolemy the 15th. That's him right there.
Interesting. Why do 70+% of most statues that come from Chemes have their nose defaced siblings?
Well, the nose is a very is a denotation of royalty. Your nose is was that right there shows your royalty. This right here, and also to breathe oxygen and air represented life. Mm-hmm. This is what you breathe in to represent life. So when you knock the nose off, it represents death to that culture, death to that to those lineage and those people. Because your nose is what helps you to breathe oxygen, which is the breath of life. It's another thing the Christians can't explain. Ask them what the breath of life is. I don't know. And it's just as simple as saying it's oxygen. It's just oxygen. That's the breath of life. You know.
So that was a metaphysical response. What about the surface level response? Why were they chopping the nose off, defacing the nose off all of these statues?
Royalty. The nose. That's what I'm saying. The nose, right? The size of the nose and it represented royal lineage. That's what our noses represent. That's why we have these big noses.
For shiggity.
Yeah, the same way our hair represented the crown that stands up. When they make metaphysical crowns, they use crowns that stand up, not crowns that fall down.
Yeah.
So our hair represented the upright kings, not the fallen angels. The hair, metaphysically, that falls down represents the fallen angels. You know, same thing with the nose. The nose is upright. It doesn't fall down. It's not pointy. It's not pointing down. It's pointing up. That's why I said it's a sign of royalty. Everything with the lips, our voice box, because our voices are deeper, represents royalty.
So,
you know?
You being in the wilderness of North America, a bit further down from you, you got the Tolmecs or the Olmecs. Who were they? Were they original people?
Those were original kings and queens that came from Africa. Though that's what, and they used to be worshipped by the American Indian and the Aztecs and the Mayans and things of that nature. But this was way before the Caucasian got on the planet.
So
This is
the American Indian.
This is older than the Caucasian race.
Oh yes. Well, okay.
Mm-hmm. So when they came and they discovered these things here, they like, well, how the hell y'all doing this? And we destroying these people. We're the ones that's able to conquer these people.
So okay. Oh, okay. Let's take it down that route then. So the fall. How did, like, supreme science, mathematics, architectural feats that cannot be duplicated to this day?
Mm-hmm.
What happens?
What happens with what?
Well, how did we fall off? How did original people
fall off?
Yeah.
Well, by nature, we were destined to fall off because the gases and chemicals and spirits that used to help us, they left our race for the other races that can thrive better with the conditions at hand. So when the nuclear fallout happened 18 million years ago, remember when I told you our ancestors did what? They lost their powers. And their powers were linked with the sun, right? And that gave the power of the planets and the moon enough energy to destroy a lot of what our ancient ancestors and their superhuman powers were able to do, right? And that gave birth to us. So we would be considered the sixth ether at that point in time beings. Only at that point in time, not now.
Okay.
We are the melanated by sun, but our spirits are ghost spirits through sun through ghost, right? So we are the son of God, but they are also the son of ghost as well. I mean, I know it sounds a little tricky, right? But once you get
complex,
once you get more into Noon, then you'll understand how those connections are being made. But let's going back to how did this happen to us? It's because the sun lost its potency as time went on. And so we lost our potency as well. And the moon gained its potency. You remember when I talked about the photons of light?
Yeah.
That shift information? The moon also has photons, right? So the sun gives off ATP, adenyl triphosphate, and then the moon converts that adenyl triphosphate to, adenyl triphosphate to now adenyl diphosphate, right? And that information now is being given to the people and causing the people to have a degradation in morals, characteristics, knowledge, all of these different things. So it's not something that we could stop.
So it's environmental.
Ask us to recreate what's in Africa now. We can't do it.
Of course not. Of course not.
Because we've lost the information and the knowledge. And then we had a degradation of that through religion. They rewrote it and stuff like that. So it's an unraveling of that. And now it goes back to the same question you asked in the beginning.
Yeah.
How can Noon help us right now? This is exactly how. It's helping us to regain our consciousness. None of what I'm saying is religion. I ain't asking no one to believe me. I'm giving actual, factual, scientific terms, everything. Nothing of what I'm saying is, I don't know, maybe. No, these are things that happen. Somebody asks me about reincarnation, go look into ligand-gated ion channels. You will find incarnation there. You will also find incarnation in neurogenesis as well. There's two different factors that have to take place. Then they also ask the question, well, why did Jesus' life from 12 to 30 go missing, and in 30 he gets incarnated? Reason being is about around 30 years old, that's when neurogenesis peaks. That's when your prefrontal cortex matures. Your prefrontal cortex reaches maturity around 25 to 30. And that's why Jesus was able to become incarnated with that information and that knowledge and illuminated at 30 years old, because his prefrontal cortex was now able to accept those things. It's all scientific. That's why when you hear York and them talk about, oh, he was gifted from time he was 17 and things like that, he might have been gifted, but his prefrontal cortex was not developed. His you cannot skip the process, the biological process of how these things happen. It's impossible to skip the process. Also, a person's life is also the reason why a spirit might choose a person as well, depending on, you know, the life activity. So the spirit was not going to pick the one that Afro-Unu got, was not going to pick somebody who's going to rape children. He's not going to pick somebody who's going to be complicit to statutory rape and to abusing people and things of that nature. No, it's going to pick someone who is, you know, most likely along the lineage of pushing and researching information and things of that nature. Somebody who will align with the particular agenda. And that's who he was. He was somebody who always used, if you read his obituary, he was someone who was avidly looking for information and to try to find the truth. The same thing with my journey. I was always looking for information and truth. And that's why those spirits chose me to do what I do through Noon. That's why I said eventually everybody, and that eventually meaning that when you get to the stage of neurogenesis and Langerhans-gated ion channels, then your spirit is going to bring you over into that. But a lot of people are not ready for that because they're locked into the spell. The spell being the you can block your Langerhans-gated ion channels by food. You can block it by information. You can block it by trying to deny it as well. But as soon as you get the photons on the proper light, matter of fact, Taah Nuun was telling me the other day that they are manipulating the reality through light. And what is light? Photons. So they can manipulate us even getting information and waking up through the photons and the light, because photons are information and it is light. It's a unit of light and it's massless. You know, so
does that have any connection with I think they've renamed it now, but that Project Blue Beam thing that they were doing, remember doing all those trials in Africa?
To do with that. It has everything to do with that, because blue light, right, is a type of light that can damage the retina and the person, like when you watch TV, right? They tell you if you watch TV you can't go to sleep, right? That blue light from the TV and the phone and stuff like that, it can damage your brain and stop you from being able to sleep. So us just even being on these computers giving off blue light, that's why they tell you when you go to sleep, put that film over it. It's like a red film or something like that, in order for you to get your proper rest. So blue beam and all these lights, anything that's dealing with lights, mm-hmm. is a manipulation of us waking up.
Well, my advice would be to switch off all your electronic devices before you go into bed. I'd even go one step further and say just leave everything downstairs, go upstairs. Mm-hmm. If possible. I mean, I know this is hard to do, especially within this 24-hour lifestyle we've got. Mm-hmm. Even turning your router off. Turn your router off, and when you're going to use your, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not something I do all of the time, but when I can, I will potentially.
I don't do it at all.
You know,
I'm gonna say lie to you. I don't do it at all, but I would recommend that people that they do that. I would say yes to do that. You know, I try to do that. I try to do it from time to time, but I'm not gonna sit here and be a hypocrite and say, "Oh, well, yeah."
This is it, man. It's about showing and proving, and sometimes you can't. As I said, with this busy lifestyle we've got, you can't do everything. You know, we're definitely imperfect beings trying to, you know, ascertain perfection in as many ways as possible. But all we can do is do our best ultimately in this
Right.
this wonderful movie that we're living in at the moment.
It sure is. It's a dangerous movie too. But at the end of the day, like Trump said, is you gonna love the ending.
Yay for riggedy, man. This Truman Show.
That's Taah Noon boy right there, Trump.
Yeah, man. So I was gonna go into it a bit earlier, but I think that's a nice segue. You mentioned Kamala Harris. Now, I haven't done a lot of research on this young lady at all. But I hear one of the main things I was in the vehicle at the start of the week, and I was listening to the radio. Um, and they were talking about, oh, she's the running mate or whatever the hell she is with Biden, and this is only hypothetical, but if he's because he's so damn old, he might only be able to do a certain amount of time, and then she would naturally take his position, and that would be the first black woman, so and so. And I'm like,
She's not even black.
she's not black. Wait a minute. I mean, I'm not even into her like that. So, but just looking at her and then just doing a little rudimentary research, how, and this is from what I'm seeing as well. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the media, that's all that's being promoted is that she's a black woman. She's a black woman. She's doing this. She's doing that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but to be original or black, don't you have to have two parents that are black or original?
The telltale sign is just the kinky hair, because that's what's going to dominate the person's genetic structure. So you could have a white parent and a black parent, but if the dominant gene that comes out is it produces kinky hair on the child is black. They're mixed as far as Mingalese is concerned. That's why in the nature books he makes it known that some people with mixed heritage are indeed Ethiopian. They can be considered to be Ethiopian or African because of the fact that the gene itself dominated the person and caused the person to have kinky hair. So that's why the races are determined by the person's hair structure, because the genes are what determines who a person is, not their parents. Yes, the parents determines that as well, but it's the genetic structure that determines it even more than the parents. You understand what I'm saying? So even if a person has a Caucasian mother and a black father, because then the kid might come out with curly hair, then that's not a African kid. But the kid might come out black and then have kinky hair.
Yeah.
And that right there is the child is Ethiopian. But they do have Caucasian blood within them, which can possibly skip a generation. And now they put, based on the Punnett square, it can create a problem for future generations.
So let's flip that on the head. So two black parents, well, people come together and create a child, but that child comes out with loose curl hair.
What with kinky? If the two black parents have kinky hair and they come out with loose curly hair
And light skin.
I mean, somebody might have been mingling around, because that's not according to the Punnett square. It depends on the grandparents as well.
But you've seen evidence. I mean, we've seen evidence in newspapers where two black parents can have twins and one's an albino.
The albino will still have kinky hair.
No, I'll shoot you a link as well.
Shoot me a link. Yeah, usually an African. If two Africans with kinky hair create an albino, that albino will have kinky hair. They won't have loose hair. But if two Hindus come together and they have an albino kid, that's a Caucasian. So that's why I was telling you that the hair is what denotes that.
The marker.
Yeah, it's the marker, is the hair. The two Africans will will always produce kinky hair from a child that's albino and that's Ethiopian.
Hey, so Taah, let's switch up a little bit again. You tag me in something on Instagram.
No, I'm just sending you the video so you can put them in the links.
Yeah, no. I'm saying you tag me in something on
Oh,
Instagram.
yeah. You
Yeah,
talking about
let's get into that there, man. Let's get
let
into
me
that.
see if I can pull that up real quick so everybody can scream laughing at that. Let me see if I can pull it right up real quick. It should be. Give me 1 second.
Because I have seen, I watched maybe 2 videos of some, on YouTube, you got all this crazy stuff. And they were going through all of these different quote unquote stars and celebrities and hypothesizing that, yeah, here we go, that they're not really women and that they're men and stuff. And then, yeah, here we go. So yeah. So like, let's examine it. The Bill Gates' wife, that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
She looks very masculine. But she just looks like she pumps weights. Michelle Obama looks very feminine, but there seems to be some kind of malfunction going on in that area. Whether that's some clever Photoshop or I don't know.
They've been ever since Joan Rivers
Yes.
put that out. I think she died like a month or 2 later. It's been happening, but the nature books speak about the moon having male and female spirits and then hermaphrodite spirits, and that America is called moon based, and that Hermes or Thoth or Tahuti is a hermaphrodite moon god, and so that's one of the reasons why I told you his animal was the baboon, and one was an ibis bird, and the ibis bird cleans his anus out with his beak. And certain types of baboons, I think is the what is that, the oboe, the nobo? What was that name of that one? A-Noot?
Can't remember.
I
But
think
it might have been bonobo.
Bonobo, that sounds about right.
yeah, the bonobos engage in what they would term as homosexual acts and things
Yes.
like that. And and I think the baboon has a large anus
Yeah.
color. So these particular spirit gods claim certain animals because it gave you a hint at their type of spiritual gendering, and so that was Tahuti's main animals to the Egyptians. And so when you get into the Greeks and all of that, you start seeing Hermes, and then you talking about hermaphrodite is just Hermes and Aphrodite mixed together to make the word hermaphrodite. And then you get into Hermes and all this other stuff, and I forgot their child name that got blended with a female because some woman was spying on this
Herodotus,
particular.
was it?
Let me see. Eros.
Oh, yes. Eros or whatever it is. Eros.
Yeah, Eros. Yeah, and he's the
Yeah.
one that was supposed to have been drinking from a lake or something, and some female wanted him, and she made some type of magic or something. They ended up being blended together, and so that's why you see the statues and where they have a female from the back, but if you go to the front, statue is a male, or they have the head turning back. And it's again, so America is infatuated with that. That's why you see the transgenderism so strong, because the spirits that's emanating from the moon causes this type of anomalies in humans, because they can't rearrange genetics like Anoop was saying with the DNA methylation, is because of the moon interfering with the moon god interfering with the parents' genetics of the Hindus or the Caucasian parents is what made them come out albino. So these spirits can manipulate DNA and epigenetics and all of that and cause human beings to be born in the way that you see them. So hermaphrodites is definitely something that was done by spirits to produce these type of people. And so America, what they finding out now, which they're going to see even more, is not just pedophilia is such a gross product of what they're into, but also they heavy in hermaphroditism. And this is why you see the Baphomet in a lot of these movies and videos, and you know, when they's exposing all these entertainers, you always see the Baphomet, you know, the goat guard, and the goat guard got breasts at the top and the male at the bottom. And that's telling you that that's hermaphroditism. Everybody doesn't have to, doesn't mean it's Satanism. Because hermaphroditism is a genetic defect.
Yes.
So if you're born like that, that doesn't mean you worship the devil. But what they're doing is telling you that a part of Satanism is that particular type of thing. That's a fetish. And that they also like, this is why America has been turned in the movie industry and the music industry has been turned into a Baphomet, hermaphrodite situation. That's why you look at all the rappers, you know, they was wearing man purple one time, and then they was wearing kilts. They had Puff and Kanye and them was running around with them kilts on. Then next thing you know, Young Thug and them start popping up. It's been a gradual thing. When you get into masonry, you see the Baphomet, and you see people like what is his name?
Jay-Z with that clothing label thing.
No, one of the conscious community teachers.
Bobby Hemmett, he did a build about Baphomet.
He was trying to say that was a divine symbol. No, it's
not. He did say that there.
That's foolishness, because if it was divine, that the image and likeness of, if we're gonna play that on a mundane level, would be the male and female, and to be able to procreate. A hermaphrodite can't create. It's not. It can't do anything.
I'm sure exactly, but I'm sure he along with Mrs. Dondrella, I think her name is, if I'm pronouncing that right. They came out. They've done stuff about the parthenogenesis or whatever the hell it is. You know, when they're talking about the sun can impregnate women. You heard about that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we heard in the Wappings always.
That crazy stuff. That's nonsensical, man. That don't make no damn sense, man.
And this, again, York was into that too. York was into that. I told you I got some teachings on my YouTube where York was teaching that heavy. A couple of stories he taught that. A lot of these you know, so-called spiritual people are into that. They get into these organizations, and the spirit possesses them, and they go off into this so-called lifestyle and thinking that they're getting secrets. And the only thing the spirit want to do is just play with your booty. That's it. But the spirits make it sound like it's such a, you getting some knowledge, but when you really strip it away, that's all it is. Knowledge don't come from the booty. Knowledge comes from the brain. Mm-hmm. So why y'all gotta, you know, give a booty hole and do gay acts for knowledge? That don't make no sense. The brain is not there.
But that sounds like some Aleister Crowley type stuff. You know, that ritual that you did.
That's part of the occult, and being at 3 South, that's a feature of 3 Ether. See, 6 Ether is a sex force, but 3 Ether, the more corrupt, adverse form of 6 Ether. And see, we have, you know, again, these are things that.
Reason why they do that is a sacrifice.
That too.
And what I said, the reason why they do that is a sacrifice. And what is a sacrifice? To give up something for something else. Mm-hmm. You know, in order to get information and knowledge, you got to give up sexual energy. Basically, it's an exchange of energy, but it's usually it's usually a unfair exchange of energy, because you're gonna find yourself in a position where you're losing more than what you're gaining for that particular information.
Yep.
Right? So that's what a sacrifice is. A sacrifice is a one-sided bargain between one individual to the other. All right.
True indeed. Powerful. You dropped some.
But that's why you see such a strong emphasis on these everything that's coming out now about politicians, Epstein, all this stuff is heavily based on that because the bottom half is ran by sex, and each race have their own different style of sex. The Caucasian style mostly out of everything is pedophilia and homosexuality and blood sacrificing. That's their main three things that they own, and causing people to change gender roles. Just like right now, just like with the black community, they changed the gender roles. They got the man out the house and made the female the breadwinner, even if the government was giving her stuff. And if you take the man out, then eventually what they did was the government became the daddy who wasn't there, but it still didn't take care of her sexual needs. So then now you move the man who wanted to be there. Now here comes the dudes who not gonna be there. Then here comes, you know, the girlfriends, and then you might start playing with the girlfriend. Or then here come the homosexual, the original homosexual, and then he got switched out. Next thing you know, then the female mother, now she wants to be, not only she want to be gay, she want to be the masculine dyke, she want to be the butch, she want to be whatever. And then you got all of then it just went from just being gay to cross-dressing to transgendering, and it just kept going and going. All these are features of a negative side of the moon. And only in America, in certain places, you can get away with that. The United Nations pushes that whole gender thing too. If you go all the way back to when the United Nations was formulated, that was a part of it. And that's what they've been pushing that, you know, genders and is a person. No, it's not. Gender is based upon your genetics and your biology.
Exactly.
Your sex. I can't say, oh, I'm gay. That's not not a nationality. That's not a person. That's a part of your nature or force in you that causes you to want to reproduce. That's what sex is. But it's not a person. And so the people just when people say these things, it's confusion. But that's part of the Caucasians' demented society and where we at on the smack circle. And so now we at a point now that life must continue. So therefore, in order for life to have a chance, death must now be used in the positive and to get rid of those who've been vampiring off of death and corrupting it. And that's what the exposure of pedophilia and what they've been doing and hiding have to be exposed, and they have to be judged and processed and then killed. And that's really what's taking place according to what I've been reading and hearing, that QAnon and them already done did the damn thing from 1999, because they say that, what his name is, they said JFK gave specific orders to certain people before he was killed, and they say that all of the people he gave information to happened to have the name Q. And so once he died, was killed, certain people of his little circle will pop their heads up and try to make certain things done. They kept killing them off. So they've been practicing and training to bring the government back to the Constitution from 62 all the way to 1999. So from the year 2000 forward, they had been doing that. So according to what I've been hearing, once Trump won, that was it. So what we're seeing now is them allowing it to play out as if the deep state is like still in power, because they know that the people have been put under so many different types of brainwashing, not just religion, but politics is a form of religion too. And I never could understand, you know, how people be like, oh yeah, that's the far left, that's the far right, that's the Democrat, that's the Republican, this is bipartisan, this is liberal. This is foolishness. These are corrupt people. But they believe these different parties are all different forms of Greek and Roman philosophies, and the way they had those old countries and kingdom set up, and they just redone it. Like you said, one of the symbols of Rome was I think an eagle.
Eagle.
America's symbol is the eagle. You can just keep going down, and you can see all of that.
And the fascia,
Right. The fascist symbol on the back of the dime, yeah, all of that. So what Trump them is doing is just they the positive side of the Caucasian race that nature's using to gut out all this stuff again to make way for the innocent and the elite and the children, and for whatever races that's supposed to survive to have a fresh start. So Trump them represent not only the end of the old cycle and season, but also the beginning of a reset. And everybody eventually gonna have to get away to the countries of their origin. So what we going through now is an intermission. We just waiting on certain events to take place, and that's it. And get the hell on out of here. That's really what it got to be.
I like the sound of that.
Coming. And so anybody who don't find themselves anyway, and only people that's going back to Africa is Africans and the surrounding islands. So when the knowledge comes out and it confirms what Afroon been saying, and Noone Science is in play, people ain't gonna have no hard time of getting back to where they're going, because by nature, you would be allowed to go forth if you were selected. But you got to go back to where you come from, which is your origin. You can't be like, okay, I'm Caucasian, I accept Noone, I'm going over here to Cambodia. No. You're allowed to go back to Europe. That's it. There's no more intercontinental traveling and taking over people's lands. All that is over with. Everybody done learned their lesson of that. Evolution played itself out. It's time for revolution. And revolution doesn't necessarily mean just contact between two groups of people. That's not the case. The revolution, like they said, is not being televised because Trump and them is doing it. But it will be shown the after effects of it, because the people are so gone that if you was to show them half the stuff that they was doing, like a lot of people in America is going to be destroyed just off of the entertainment factor, because they love these entertainers. They love Tom Hanks. They love John from Three's Company and Popeye and all these different. We got so many stars all the way back to the Wizard of Oz and the little white girl on Poltergeist. You got all these different people out and seen that they claim was either sexually abused and thrown away, abused or killed, you know? And
that was crazy. That's what I found out about that poor girl from, as you said, the little young star from Poltergeist. That was some sick stuff, man. Shirley Temple, all of these quote, these little child actors and actresses. It seems like they've been having a real hard time of it, man.
And a lot of people don't know, and people still kept taking their children right to Hollywood, sending them right on in there to be killed and used. I don't know. Now the thing with the little girl from Poltergeist, I heard an interview today with her sister was being interviewed, and they said that the person who put that out partially was the guy that played the Fonz.
Oh, yeah. I can't think of his name.
He played the Fonz on Happy Days.
Yes.
But he said instead of Steven Spielberg, he said their father was doing it, and she said that was a lie, and that her sister died of some kind of disease, and said they didn't have enough money to be a star and all that. But I don't believe that. I'm not saying that their father done that, but I'm saying that if you were in Hollywood and that little girl was in like 3 big blockbuster movies.
Yes.
And how they do it, they groom you. They don't let you get big, then present the deal.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do it beforehand. So that's how it goes. So when people realize they done contributed to the child abuse murder in ways like they done gave all this money to Obama and Bill and Bush and Hillary, all these people, a lot of them is gonna kill themselves, because number one, religion never told them it was like this. They just told you it's evil in the world, and it talk about everything else except pedophilia. Why the Bible don't talk about that? That's a serious crime. That's against humanity, against the future. The Quran don't talk about pedophilia. They don't talk about the child sacrifices, because the gods that they worshiping is the same gods that the evil people, elite, are taking them children and women and men to. Because those gods are having two faces. They showing you the one on the surface where, you know, they all dress up and they go to Mecca and they go to, you know, visit the Vatican, and they go over here and visit this and this saint and that saint and all this old stuff. They don't even realize that underneath your feet in all these places you're going to is other people's children. Somebody, family member you might have had known went missing and you don't know what happened. And the crazy part is a lot of these people that was helping them is in law enforcement and politicians. Yeah. That's why they got away. Trump said that the technology that they using is better than the stuff they got. Mm-hmm. So look, imagine that.
You can go back to the
you talking about 300 to 800,000 children a year get took, and all these cameras and nobody sees that. Mm-hmm. That means somebody's in all these places manipulating it every time they taking people's kids and kidnapping women. That's how it was until Trump and them got a hold of the NSA and all this information they going through and running this stuff back. They claim that if anybody been on any type of device in the last 15 years or so, they got copies of everything. So that means whatever the deep state was doing, whether it was on the line or offline or secret, whatever, if it was digital, they got it. And so there's no way they're going to fight this war out with us being in the middle, because we're being used a whole long time. But that's why Trump didn't go public with it, because it's a war. And if you know you fighting a group of people that would drop a bomb just to get rid of you because they don't want to give up rulership and they're afraid of what's going to come to them, you can't fight an enemy like that ain't got nothing else to lose, because they don't care about life. They care about death. So they had to play this game the way they played it. You can't go in and rush. It ain't like that. These folks are sick. They see what they did with the pandemic. And they saying that thing is over 800,000 people worldwide that they do know about. These folks just drop the information, then put lying doctors on television. You know Trump wanted to tell the truth, but he had to play the game. For a couple of months, he had to sit there and watch Americans die because he knew that Fauci and Bill Gates and them was fish. And Mike Pence and them. You got people all around him literally Trump surrounded by the investors in the killing. Mike Pence, you heard of him, right?
Yes.
I got a video on my channel where a guy who worked in Texas dealing with rescuing children and something for 20-some years was saying that Mike Pence was raping and killing Cambodian kids overseas and bringing them to the base in America, and his wife is helping them.
No surprise.
Bloody murder, raping them and choking them to death while he doing it. So all these politicians are sick. In the way of Newt just described incarnations, you got those type of spirits. Once they see this, how it works. You create a society of negative mentalities that line up with the same spirits that's floating in the atmosphere, waiting for that time and season to kick in. Once the season kick in, and then they set up all that negative stuff on the ground, worshiping, drinking, sex, murder, all that stuff, then the spirits can just come on down and use as many crash test dummies as they want. And that's what it is. They just grab one car, drive it, destroy it, jump in another body. But now the cycle and season have turned, and now the sun is emanating a type of energies that those energies can't take. So they being dissipated and getting rid of. And if we don't work with the cycle and season, you're going to get possessed by 10 or 20, because their body supply got cut off. And now they fighting for a body to get, because they don't get a body, they're going to evaporate, because spirits need a human being to live in to have nutrition. So once you cut off the human supply, it's a fight for nothing but animals and the guilty. This is why it's important that you take your chemicals, change your diet. All that stuff is how it makes it easier for you to be possessed. and they don't give a damn. Just think of a drug addict you've seen, or alcoholic that just tore up from the floor, just walking around, no shoes on, just destroyed. That spirit does not give a damn about that person, and the spirit is vamping they life energy. Where they look sucked in, and you can see the bones coming through their face. That's how powerful the spirit or spirits is in that person, and they're gonna ride it till the wheels fall off because the supply is short.
Oh yeah. Hey, so siblings, this has been a powerful build to put the capstone on this here, my solution based upon what you're saying, you know, how can people fortify self to lessen the chances of these spirits inhabiting them?
Go ahead, Nuke. You got it.
First thing is to try to get yourself some proper information outside of what you already know, even if you have Noon. And the reason why I say that even if you have Noon is because you always gonna come back to Noon, because Noon is the truth. So regardless of, even if you go out there and you find other information, it's also gonna link back to Noon, because Noon is the truth. But if you're a Christian and you're out there and you're looking for truth, I would say give Noon a chance, because everything starts with the mental. Once you're reading physical information, that is like reading a photon. So your information is your photon, right? It's light. You're literally reading light, right? And as that particular energy gets giving off radiation, because photons give off radiation, which is called light, and that energy changes the molecular structure of the person. So information that you're reading can change your molecular structure and allow you to absorb a more favorable spirit while it's actually changing in the atmosphere, because the sun is actually converting a lot of the negative spirits that are in the atmosphere to positive ones through radiation, such as gamma radiation and high energy radiation waves. So that's what's taking place right now. So we as human beings have to take advantage of what's taking place. That way we don't get destroyed in the process of that. This is why they had the weighing of the heart ceremony. The weighing of the heart ceremony is just a process, or biological process, that the human body carries out, that's also happening on a spiritual level. And what I mean by that is you have the heart going into the chamber, and it's being weighed against the feather. The feather being your actions, your works, and things like that. But if your heart is heavier than the feather, then you get devoured by the crocodile god, right? In the human body, if your blood is tainted and it goes down into the liver, which is the chamber, right? The same chamber as is the one in ancient Egypt. What happens? If the blood is bad, then it gets sent down to the bile, in which the bile emulsifies that bad blood, and then it gets eradicated through feces or whatever the case may have you. Same thing that happens on the spiritual aspect. If your spirit is bad, and right now we are in the liver aspect of things, right? Which is why this is called the Libra cycle, right? And the Libra cycle is a representation of the liver. And you are being processed based upon that, right? And once you are processed and it realizes that your spirit is bad, you will be emulsified by those negative forces, right? And you will be eradicated from the total existence, right? So it's very important to have the proper information and knowledge in order to carry you into the next cycle. Read, right? If you can't read, then listen to audio tape. If you can't listen to audio tape, then listen to someone who is teaching Noone. And we do that quite a few times. We have a lot of videos dealing with Noone and things like that. I'm actually gonna start up my channel very, very soon. We did a long build today, and I'm tired, so I'm gonna get me some rest. But I would implore you to go to my website, noponoone.com, NOPONOONE.com, and check out the books. The books are also on another website called Fine9News.com, FINENENEWS.com. All right. I also have a multitude of products. I have the Pan-African socks. I have the calendar behind me that you see here, and a lot of other products that I'll be coming with soon. So, also check out the products on Fine9News.com as well. They have a lot of toiletries and sea moss products on there, so they could definitely help you out with whatever health needs that you're looking to get. And those health products will help to create an environment within your body, regardless of the toxic environment that's around you, creating the environment within your body in order for you to accept the type of spirit that you need if it's not already sent to you. All right. So we also take those products as well until we get a pure sun spirit. We're just doing what we can do until that particular time comes where we all are emulsified with the proper spirits that can inhabit us and take us to the next level.
Excellent. One last question for you, Taah, as you left the part one early. The question I have for you is, who are you, and don't tell me your name?
You said, who am I?
Yes, indeed, sibling.
But don't say your name.
You're throwing me off with that one.
Give me some, so tell me who you are as a person. Give me some attributes to who you are, not just your name.
Oh, okay, not just, I mean, like a new, it's similar, a philosopher, a teacher, a writer, orator. I mean, just natural with these things. A good friend, a fighter, for our people, a spreader of Noone. I mean, I've been at this for quite some time, 2008, and it's been a bumpy ride. I mean, I sent you some YouTube so you could check out some things. If people want to get to know more about me, they need to go to my YouTube and look up some videos called Ken Conversations. And it's like 45 videos of different people we met along the way. And we tell our story of how we got the information, how we ran into each other, and things of that nature. I tell people like that all the time because I think that was good. Like I said, it's 45 videos of 3-way, 4-way, 5-way on the phone, and some debating, some little bit of arguing, some talking. Because a lot of us used to do this. You just call each other and just start recording. And so we have plenty of those things like that. I'm a member of the African race. I'm glad to be. I'm proud to made it this far. I'm glad that I met the people that I met. My personal circle with A-Noot. We just, that's it. We just want what's best for our race and everybody else. And we just want to get back to making history like we did in the past, but better. And just left alone to do that. That's really what we want. So that's, like I said, going with what my name is, the meaning in Noone is the bladder. So I get rid of waste, and that's what I do. So like the
True.
Tasmanian devil. I can't stop. I try to stop. Try to take breaks, but I can't. I knew to take that. Like we always constantly doing something. It's really hard. Like I'll feel guilty if I take too much time off.
Mm.
You know,
So we have a job.
That's how driven we are.
Because you know your purpose. We got
Yeah,
purpose,
yeah,
upliftment of fallen humanity. It will never stop until, you know, the balance and the power is balanced to where it should be.
yeah.
Um, it's been an excellent build. Trustfully, the siblings, them, I think they're pretty sure they're gonna have to pause this a few times. They're maybe gonna have to listen to it a few times, you
You've been
know.
on it like 4 hours.
You know, that's how we do it, man. Knowledge is infinite, man. Growth and development, wonderful builds. Honors to you both for coming on and demonstrating and showing and proving this Noone Science.
Mm-hmm. You're gonna have a lot of work to do. How long it take you to load up something like this, or you haven't ever loaded up?
Yeah, man. Don't worry about that, sibling. We gonna get it, man. We gonna get it.